Chapter 490. My situation is different from Yuan's. With Jingwan's reincarnation as a foundation, it was not that unbelievable that she had transmigrated. She was not worried that he would not be able to accept it. Jingwan organized her thoughts. I came from another place, a place that can never be found here. When a Yuan came back, he transmigrated through time. It's as if time went back. I probably transmigrated through space. Space, how do I explain it? It's like there are two aromatherapy balls. Qi Yuan and everything that can be extended from Qi Yuan are in one ball. Even if I were to redo my life, it would still be in the same ball. However, Wan came from the other ball. Under normal circumstances, the two aromatherapy balls are not connected and cannot touch each other, Li Hongyuan continued. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan strangely. His ability to understand was amazing. After all, Jingwan did not know what was going on. If she had to explain it, she might not be able to explain it better than this. Jingwan felt that if this man was in her previous life, he probably would not have made a fool of himself just because he was an antique. That's pretty much what I mean. In a sense, you can also think of me as a reincarnation with the memories of my previous life. That place is very different from this place. However, its history is similar to the history of this place and Qi Yuan. The geographical location is also very similar. The era I lived in was very different from the current Qi Yuan. Jingwan said slowly with a hint of nostalgia. Li Hongyuan listened attentively. Although he had expected that the place Jingwan lived in might be very different, the difference was far beyond his imagination. Although he could not accept all of it, there were many things that were worth looking forward to. Wan is talking about the environment she lived in. What about you? You can be together freely. If we are together, we will be together. If we disagree, we will separate. How many men has Wan slept with? Li Hongyuan raised his head and looked at Jingwan. His eyes were dark, and it was obvious that he was going to turn hostile if something went wrong. That's just a way to get to know each other and improve their relationship before marriage. Compared with Yuan having multiple wives and concubines, it doesn't seem to be anything at all, right? Only the magistrate is allowed to set a fire, but the common people are not allowed to light a lamp. Jin Wangya, there is no such thing as you. Jingwan found it funny. Li Hongyuan's expression was terrible, but he knew very well that if he pursued this matter, he would be destroying their relationship. Moreover, Wan's environment at that time had always been like this. Just like in Qi Yuan now, it was normal for men to have multiple wives and concubines. There was nothing to criticize. Therefore, even if he was unhappy, he could only pinch his nose and accept it. However, I only had one. The most we could do was hold hands. Because I didn't want to have any further contact with him, he separated from me. Jingwan continued to say with a smile. The expression on Li Hongyuan's face immediately turned bright. It's good that they separated. That kind of brat who only thinks about molesting women, what's the point of staying? Wan should have separated from him earlier. Jingwan gently rubbed Li Hongyuan's face with her fingers. She chuckled and did not speak. As long as he was happy, it was fine. So, Wan did not get married? No. In our country, the law has a requirement for the age of marriage. In our country, women are 20 years old. When I left that world, I was already over 20 years old. However, I did not think about getting married. Moreover, there is no rule that states that you have to get married when you reach the age of marriage. Choosing to be single for a lifetime is not a problem. Of course, the premise is that there will be no relatives nagging. Wan's family must be very rich, right? Li Hongyuan knew how the environment affected a person. It shaped a person's temperament and formed a person's behavior and habits. Since Wan was already over 20 years old at that time, many things had already been formed. She had been in the Luo family for more than 10 years. The things that were deeply ingrained in her bones were very difficult to change, especially when Li Hongyuan saw how tenacious and unyielding Jingwan was. The more she was like this, the more difficult it was to change some things. You can say that. After all, I'm also the son of an official. Although the difference between the officials there and Qi Yuan's officials is huge, there are more or less similarities. Moreover, my father's position isn't considered low and is definitely different from ordinary people. He has high expectations for me. After all, at least on the surface, he only has me as his child. He wants to nurture me into the most outstanding socialite so that he can use me to climb up the social ladder. Naturally, I have the best upbringing. Jingwan's expression was indifferent. Obviously, she did not have a good impression of that father. Wan seems to know some things that people with better conditions should not know. Did something happen in her family later? Yes. Jingwan raised her head and sank into her memories with a hint of sadness. He betrayed my mother. He had an affair with another woman and appeared arrogantly in front of my mother. However, my mother originally wanted to divorce him. In that place, it was normal for couples to divorce if they did not get along. After the divorce, both parties could remarry. However, that man was an official, so it was impossible for him to do that. After all, monogamy was the law. It was not easy for my mother to divorce him. After a long tug of war, when the results were about to be out, both of them met with an accident at the same time and died. Only my grandmother and I were left. Not long after that, it was revealed that he had colluded with the bandits. However, he was dead, so everything was over. After all, he would not be implicated, but his family property was seized. Those bandits seemed to have suffered losses because of him. After he died, those bandits naturally found me and my grandmother. I lived a wandering life with my grandmother for a period of time. My grandmother was a woman from a scholarly family and had an excellent upbringing. Because of her earnest teachings, I did not go astray. However, my grandmother's originally healthy body had already collapsed, and she passed away a few years after that. During that time, I lived a very bad life and was muddle-headed. Then one day, I seemed to have suddenly fainted. When I regained consciousness, I knew that the original me was most likely dead and reincarnated, but I seemed to have forgotten to drink Meng Po's soup. I still remember everything from my previous life. Jingwan lowered her head and looked at Li Hongyuan. Her eyes were slightly red. Wan, you have me now. Moreover, the Luo family is also your relatives. Most of them are good people. Li Hongyuan said softly. It was no wonder that she did not like concubines since she was young. She was also particularly disgusted by men who were fickle in relationships. She was particularly close to Madame Luo. I know. In fact, my grandmother in my previous life has already passed away. I have nothing to worry about. My grandmother in my previous life and my grandmother now are quite similar in some ways. It is undeniable that in the beginning, I was close to my grandmother because of the transference of affection. After a long time, my feelings for her are also real. If you miss Madame Luo, you can always take the time to go back and visit her. Oh, you're suddenly so generous? Who was the one who pulled a long face and was unhappy because I stayed in the Luo family for a long time? Jingwan teased. The sadness in her heart dissipated a little. Li Hongyuan snorted coldly. How long can Madame Luo live? In any case, the one who will be by your side for the rest of your life will be me. Jingwan paused. Ah Yuan, thank you. She lowered her head and kissed Li Hongyuan's lips. Just a word of thanks is enough. But other than this, I don't have anything else. After all, I'm yours. I've given you my whole life. These words could be said to have greatly pleased the living king of hell. What do you mean you don't have anything else? I'm not yours. The big Jin Qinhuang Fu isn't yours. Jin Qinhuang, whose sweet talk skill was maxed out, really pleased Jin Qinhuang Fei. Some feelings began to linger again. Jingwan decisively changed the topic. Since Yuan's fine brushwork is so good, why don't we cooperate on a painting? I'll paint you and you paint me, how about it? Painting a portrait of Li Hongyuan could be said to be the peak of Jingwan's fine brushwork. Especially the first portrait, the surreal style. In the future, it would be difficult to surpass that level. Why not? Li Hongyuan got up and pulled Jingwan's wrist, walking behind the table again. You first or me first? Why don't we do it together, one for each person? After each person finishes, the other person will fill in the other half. Let's see whose the final one is more harmonious and perfect. The idea is good. However, if Wan loses, don't cry. Li Hongyuan's slender and powerful fingers scratched the tip of Jingwan's nose. Jingwan lightly patted his hand away. I'm not a person who is jealous of talent, how can I cry? Besides, even if my painting skills are far inferior to yours, but this is not something that can be won by just relying on painting skills. After all, without discussing the layout in advance, any situation can happen. Thus, it is still unknown who will win and who will lose. Is that so? Then this husband will wait and see. Li Hongyuan smiled lightly, handsome and compelling. Jingwan moved her line of sight and curled her lips. Although she had long been accustomed to it, but when it suddenly happened occasionally, it was still unbearable. Li Hongyuan had never cared much about his appearance, but it felt good to be able to mesmerize his wife. Each person occupied half of the table, working separately. Perhaps in order to cooperate with Jingwan, Li Hongyuan deliberately slowed down his speed, and the paper was also smaller. Thus, in the end, it did not take long to finish half of the painting. In the end, they almost stopped at the same time. They looked at each other, and from their expressions, it could be seen that they were quite satisfied. When they saw each other's painting, they were slightly stunned. Then, they looked up at each other and smiled. At this moment, it was really an incomparable tacit understanding. This was because both of their layouts were relatively conventional, and it was easy to add the other half. It was enough to show that they were considerate of each other and did not deliberately think of ways to make things difficult for each other. More coincidentally, the layouts of the two paintings were very similar. In the end, when the paintings were completed, it could be said that it was the same person who painted two similar paintings. However, the other half of the painting should have taken longer than before. In fact, it was not so. It was just as smooth and confident. In this way, they spent half a day in the study. Later, when Nanny Gong came to tidy up the study, she finally calmed down. The princess and the prince did not really quarrel. Nanny Gong did not know how to paint, but she had the ability to appreciate paintings. This painting was obviously done by two people. Although the prince's fine brushwork was beyond her imagination, she did not find it strange. After all, she did not like the prince's style of doing things, but she did not deny that he was extraordinary in all aspects. After that, Mama Gong realized that her Wang Fei's gaze towards her was a little strange. However, she did not try to find out the reason. She did what she was supposed to do. Her gaze did not change. And, she strictly adhered to her professional ethics. Jingwan thought to herself, Nanny Gong has been specially trained and is a secret guard. Her composure is not comparable to ordinary people. I used to think that Nanny Gong's temperament was like this, but it turned out that it was not the case. There was a special training in it. Nanny Gong, let the people get ready. We'll go to the Luo family in the afternoon. After hearing what her husband said, even if it wouldn't happen right now, Jingwan still couldn't remain indifferent. It was as if she would not be at ease if she did not take a look. Yes, Your Highness. Nanny Gong replied and prepared to leave. Nanny Gong, does your highness have any other orders? In Nanny Gong's impression, Jingwan was slightly hesitant when speaking. That is, you can slowly remove the makeup on your face. Nanny Gong was actually much younger than her face showed, and the shape of her face was also different. It was fine if she did not know before, but now that she knew, there was no reason for her to continue acting like this. Gong Mama paused and immediately reacted. She knew that the princess consort already knew some things. This might be the reason why the prince and the princess consort had argued before. It was obvious that no one liked having a spy around them years ago. However, the prince had still managed to appease the princess consort in the end. Yes. Nanny Gong actually looked similar to the previous female nurse. Under the subtle influence of the female nurse, her current face was actually closer to her original appearance. However, the age difference was there. If she suddenly completely removed the makeup, in the eyes of outsiders, it would definitely be a different person. Therefore, the removal of the makeup would not be done overnight. It would take at least a year and a half. It was not the New Year's Day, and it was not something that happened in the Luo family, but Jin Qinhuang brought Jin Qinhuang Fei to the Luo family. The Luo family naturally did not understand and worried that something might have happened. With such emotions, old Madame Luo hurriedly led the Luo family out to greet them. Seeing the husband and wife coming down from the carriage without any haze on their faces, old Madame Luo breathed a sigh of relief. However, her heart was not completely at ease. Because she knew that this granddaughter of hers really hid things in her heart and could not be easily seen. After the necessary formalities were completed, the group entered the Luo Fu. Before stepping into the inner courtyard, the men and women walked separately. Old Madame Luo could not bear it anymore and hurriedly asked the doubts in her heart. Jingwan understood in her heart that she suddenly came back for no reason and scared her grandmother. Jingwan held her arm and hurriedly comforted her. "Grandmother, don't worry. I just missed you, so I came back to take a look. It's really nothing." Old Madame Luo tilted her head to look at her. After looking at her for a long time, it seemed that there was really nothing wrong. Only then was she completely relieved. "You are a Qinhuang Fei, an imperial daughter-in-law. How can you run to your maternal home for no reason? Grandmother, are you disliking me and don't want to see me?" Jingwan pretended to be wronged. "What nonsense are you saying?" Old Madame Luo patted her hand. "If it's up to me, I would naturally want you to be in front of me every day. But the rules of the imperial family are very big. If there's a little carelessness, it may cause trouble. Compared to being able to see you, grandmother naturally hopes that you can be well. Grandmother is thinking too much. It's not like you don't know what kind of person our family's Wang Ye is. As long as he agrees, nothing will happen. Moreover, because of the Bai family's matter, the emperor is in the wrong. As long as it's not too excessive, the emperor will not get involved. Moreover, the war in the northwest is in full swing, the emperor has no time to care about other things. Thus, even if other people have opinions, they will also hold it in. It's just that I'm from the Luo family, other people don't dare to say anything about Wang Ye and me. I'm only afraid that they will say that there is a problem with the Luo family's upbringing. It's just a few words of gossip, there's no need to care about it. The person who said this is their own heart that is sour. However, don't rely on Jin Qinhuang's favoritism to do whatever you want. Grandmother's words are wrong. It's because I have something to rely on that I should take advantage of the opportunity to do more things that I want to do. Preposterous reasoning. If you continue like this, be careful that Wang Ye will be tired of you one day. In the end, this was what old Madame Luo was most worried about. It won't happen. Wang Ye and I are very good. Moreover, it will change. No matter how careful we are, it will change. If it doesn't change, it will always be tolerant. All right, all right. With this mouth of yours, there aren't many people who can out-talk you. As long as you feel that there's no problem, then do as you please. Jingwan beamed and nodded with a little pride. Old Madame Luo sighed in her heart. This granddaughter not only was she spoiled by Jin Qin Wang, her temperament was also becoming more and more exposed, and her temper was also rising. Good, very good. It must be said that Jingwan's change was not only felt by old Madame Luo. Old Madame Luo wanted to talk to Jingwan like before, and then send her to talk to the other young people. Jingwan was not sent away this time. If grandmother's spirit is good, we will stay here and disturb you. Old Madame Luo had some doubts in her heart, but she couldn't think of a reason. All right, as long as you don't dislike this old woman for being stuffy. This time, don't mention Jingwan. The other people also hurriedly said no, and spoke in a joking manner. The atmosphere was harmonious and harmonious. Jingwan's words were actually less than before, but the others didn't notice. At this moment, Jingwan was really grateful to her own husband. The grudge in her heart towards the person he first fell in love with, who was not the present her, was also dissipating little by little. He remembered all the hardships and tribulations, all the cruelty and darkness, and now he was changing a lot of things with his own strength. If everything was on the original track, then under this roof, there wouldn't be the laughter now. He said that in his previous life, because of her tragic death, grandmother cried until she went blind. Jingwan was very clear in her heart that it wasn't as simple as crying until she went blind. Her previous life in Qi and Fu basically didn't change. It was enough to see that grandmother's body was also in poor health. That kind of grief, it was possible that her life would end in the Yellow Springs. There were also the other people present. Although he wasn't very clear about the others, sister-in-law Sun Yijia, who entered Prince Kang's mansion, didn't escape the tragic fate of a beautiful woman. Now, although her face was disfigured, she was happy and satisfied. Her daughter was more than 1 year old, and the little girl especially picked the good-looking parts of her parents to grow. She was a great beauty, and when she grew up, she might become a femme fatale. Sun Yijia was already preparing to have a second child, and maybe she was already pregnant. When one didn't know, one would do what one should do. But when one knew, even if it didn't happen at the moment, one couldn't be indifferent. Jingwan herself couldn't help but let her imagination run wild. She also understood why her own husband was still unable to forget. Jingwan sat upright and didn't intend to leave. Li Hongyuan also didn't call anyone to urge her, and the others couldn't drive her away. Therefore, until the several men of the Luo family went to the yamen, the first reaction of Luo Peishan and the others was, "What happened?" To them, Li Hongyuan wasn't in the mood to kindly explain. It wasn't until they ate dinner, sat down, and rushed before the curfew, that Jingwan and Li Hongyuan returned to Jin Qin Wang Fu. Luo Shangshu expressed that he was a bit confused, and asked his old wife, "Why did third girl come back with Wang Ye?" Wanwan said that she missed us. Since she was idle, she came back to sit. Is there really nothing? If there was nothing, could she wait until he went to the yamen? But if there was something, why did she leave without saying a word? Old Madame Luo frowned. To be honest, she wasn't very sure. Her own granddaughter didn't seem to be any different, but she did feel that there was something strange that couldn't be said. Luo Shangshu saw this. Forget it, Jin Qin Wang is a man with a clear mind. If something really happened, he would certainly have a sense of propriety. Third girl isn't someone who would be at a loss when something happens. The husband and wife both pressed this matter down and didn't mention it. They would wait for a few more days. If it really was a big matter, there wouldn't be no movement at all. Perhaps it really was nothing. No one stipulated that when a married daughter came back with her husband, they must leave at a certain time. On the carriage back to the Wangfu, Jingwan quietly leaned in Li Hongyuan's arms. "What's wrong? You came back to take a look and your mood is down." "No, It's just that I can't walk out for a while. It will be fine after a few days. That's why I say, you women are like this. That heart, it's like glass, very easily broken. That's right, you men's hearts are so hard that even a boulder can't compare. Jingwan didn't even think as she lightly retorted. Li Hongyuan held her hand and put it on his chest. Feel it, is it hard? Jingwan pinched twice but didn't pinch. His muscles were really not much different from a boulder. Isn't it just a boulder? Jingwan was unconvinced and patted twice. Li Hongyuan grabbed her hand. Don't tease me casually. I didn't do you in the study this morning. Do you want this husband to do you now? Jingwan felt a certain someone's body had a reaction and lightly spat at him. Pervert. That's right, your husband is a pervert, and he especially likes you. Jingwan didn't come out of his arms. In fact, she also needed to do something to divert attention. She approached his neck and stuck out her pink tongue to lick it. She smiled and said, "This is teasing. Hey, don't move." Jingwan held his hand. Wait until we go back. Li Hongyuan narrowed his eyes a little dangerously. On purpose? Jingwan's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled. Li Hongyuan gently rubbed her flexible waist. Tell me, how many days do you plan to not get out of bed? If you really make me unable to get out of bed, you will suffer from kidney deficiency. Jingwan whispered in his ear, her breath smelling like orchids. She even mischievously licked his earlobe. The strange feeling was too obvious. Li Hongyuan tilted his head slightly and said, even if you don't get off the bed, it doesn't mean that we have to continue to make love. Let's have a good time and then continue after a few hours. For example, we'll start when we go back. When you can't move anymore, we'll rest and continue tomorrow morning. Wan, tell me, if we do this repeatedly, how long can your husband last, and how long can you last? Jingwan's heart trembled at the end of his low and hoarse voice. When he teased her, he only needed to lower his voice. But what about her? This was the gap between them. However, now was not the time to talk about this. Thinking about the meaning of his words, Jingwan couldn't help but soften her waist by 9 points. She secretly wiped away her sad tears. Sure enough, she was still looking for trouble. Yuan, do you think I didn't say anything? No, my ability is questioned by my own wife. No matter what, I have to prove it properly. Yuan, I was wrong, really. Jingwan wanted to cry but had no tears. Well, this can wait a few days. Li Hongyuan indicated that he would listen to his wife now. He didn't make too big of a movement, just stroking and picking slowly. That feeling of being neither up nor down was the most torturous. Jingwan bit Li Hongyuan's clothes on his shoulder, and her eyes were forced to cry. So, even if her physique was good and she recovered quickly, she shouldn't doubt her own man. That would be courting death. After all, in this aspect, most women were actually at a disadvantage. Moreover, in the face of the king of hell, she probably couldn't be strong. She wanted to be a queen, but she didn't know how it would arouse his interest. Li Hongyuan knew that his wife was thin-skinned. In order not to make a sound, she endured a lot of pain. Only when the punishment was almost done, did he show mercy and lift her chin, swallowing all the moans that came out of her mouth. That night, naturally, it was a charming and gentle spring scenery. The king of hell did what he said, and really made Jingwan unable to move a finger. Finally, when they were taking a bath, Li Hongyuan dissolved the contraceptive pill in the water as usual. After he dissolved it, Jingwan grabbed his hand. You said that in your previous life, we had a child? You were poisoned with the sterilization powder. That's an extremely low probability. You didn't encounter it with your wife, but with me? Jingwan's mood was complicated, and she felt that it was somewhat unbelievable. It has nothing to do with us now. Wan, you don't have to think so much. Li Hongyuan expressed that he still didn't like the son. Can you tell me about it? Jingwan couldn't resist the child she didn't know at all. She was especially curious. If she didn't know that someone didn't welcome the child, she wouldn't have waited until now to ask. Li Hongyuan didn't know what to think, but he suddenly smiled with a bit of pride. Wan is right. We were husband and wife for one night, but you got pregnant. It can be seen that even if you married someone else, you should have the deepest bond with me. Jingwan was angry. She was talking about this? Don't try to change the topic. How is the child? Li Hongyuan's expression turned cold. I was the last to find out about the child. You were on the run the entire time you were pregnant with him. You were so skinny that you looked like a bag of bones, but the child was not bad. Do you know how the child was born? According to the last guard left by Fu Yunting, you cut it yourself. Your physical condition didn't allow him to be born smoothly. If you didn't ask me to take good care of him, I would have strangled him to death. I wasn't clear-headed at that time, so I didn't know the specific situation of his birth until later. Otherwise, he would have died. He and I were cut open and taken out of the mother's belly. The meaning is completely different. Yuan. Jingwan didn't know that she would deeply hurt him. Wan, you have to know that the child, even if I gave him the best everything and the best education, I still didn't like him. Fortunately, he was still satisfactory and barely qualified to be your son. Otherwise, would never recognize him. I would barely keep his life and not leave the throne to him, even if he was my only son. The Jiangshang that I conquered didn't need an heir. I could easily destroy it. Therefore, the child could sit on the throne. First, he was the son of Luo Jingwan. Second, he was qualified to be Luo Jingwan's son. It had nothing to do with him being the only heir of Li Hongyuan. This was probably something that no one thought of. If they knew, those ministers didn't know how many hairs they would pull out. Even if they had to stuff a duck, they would probably let the little prince pass. Even if Li Hongyuan gave Jingwan too much stimulation, Jingwan was still shocked speechless. If it's a girl? Jingwan murmured. If she passes, she will be the empress. Li Hongyuan said without hesitation. https://11/11807/1255405 Mobile Edition. Chapter 491. Jingwan leaned her head on Li Hongyuan's shoulder. You don't have to do this. Then why don't I take in 2 concubines now and have a bunch of concubines? Wan, what do you think? Li Hongyuan was exceptionally calm, so calm that it was cold. How dare you? Jingwan sat up straight and stared at Li Hongyuan as if she wanted to eat him. Li Hongyuan didn't have any reaction. He still looked at Jingwan emotionlessly. After a moment of stalemate, Jingwan felt as if all the bones in her body had been taken away. Her body softened and she leaned on Li Hongyuan. You know that's not what I meant. In my opinion, there's no essential difference. If I could control it, I probably wouldn't have to start over. As the lifespan of my previous life came to an end, everything would come to an end. What's there to redeem? What's there to continue the previous fate? If you were in my shoes, what would Wan choose? Li Hongyuan raised his hand and placed it on Jingwan's head, gently stroking it. What would she choose? If someone occupied your entire heart and mind, but the other person died in an absolutely unacceptable and tragic way, what would happen? She would probably go crazy. As the saying goes, if you don't go crazy, you won't live. If it were her, she would probably do something even crazier and more unreasonable. She wouldn't hesitate to give up everything. However, she thought so. If it were her, she would do the same. However, if it were the person in her heart, she would feel incomparably distressed and hope that he wouldn't do that. It was like two people who loved each other were about to be separated by life and death. When they were about to part, the person who was about to die would always hope that the one who was alive would live well, forget about him, and live a happy life. However, the one who was alive would often suffer a lifetime of pain. Would the one who died really want to be forgotten by his beloved? In his heart, he actually wanted the other person to remember him forever. It would be better if he occupied the other person's everything. However, he would be reluctant to do so. He would be reluctant to let the other person live in despair. Jingwan hugged him tightly and gave him the answer. Li Hongyuan smiled. Your husband is a selfish person. I don't want you to do anything, Wan. The more you do, the happier I will be. How many people usually had such a selfish appearance, but when it really came down to it, it was likely that they would have a completely different appearance. She was still curious, but Jingwan didn't ask any further. After all, that child didn't exist to them right now. She couldn't bring herself to touch the scars of this man that she had placed at the top of her heart for a child that didn't exist. As for their children in the future, they had to have at least one. After all, according to this man, without a qualified heir, he would destroy everything in order to not let others take advantage of him. There was nothing more terrifying than this, all right? What would be considered as destroying? It definitely wouldn't be just shaking the Qi Yuan's imperial court. That situation would definitely be many times more serious than the current battle between the Qi Yuan and the Xiongnu. That would be a real disaster. Even if it would only happen after her death, she didn't want that to happen. They would die, but there would still be relatives in this world. Thinking about them falling into turmoil and suffering, they would probably die with grievances. Whether the successor was qualified or not was one thing. They had to have a successor first. Once they had a successor, as long as it wasn't a real piece of rotten wood, they could do everything they could to make it pass. Jingwan felt that, based on their genes, unless the child was very unlucky and had some defects, it was unlikely that it would be a piece of rotten wood. However, it was useless to think about it now. Not only was the situation unstable and her body still immature, but the most important thing was that she needed someone's consent. Every time, he personally dissolved the contraceptive pills, and the one who made the pills was probably Gongjiu. If she asked Gongjiu to change the medicine, this man would probably know in seconds. Therefore, it was completely impossible for her to secretly get pregnant, so she could only wait. Perhaps when the dust settled, his state of mind would be different. Thinking about it, Jingwan became drowsy and her consciousness became blurred. Then, she didn't even know when she fell asleep. Li Hongyuan gently carried her up, but his expression was unusually cold. He wiped the water droplets off her body and put her on the bed. He leaned over and kissed her eyes. Then, he nimbly put on his clothes and went out. Your Highness. Outside the door, Nanny Gong looked at Li Hongyuan, who was unusually frightening, and was a little frightened. Keep an eye on the princess. If she shows signs of waking up, light another calming incense. Don't let her know that I have been out. Yes, Your Highness, please come back soon. You know, the princess can't sleep well without you by her side. Li Hongyuan took a look at Nanny Gong. This kind of care was a little strange, in fact. Without saying anything, he turned around and left. His sleeves drew a cold arc. Nanny Gong watched the dim light turn the corner and disappear completely in front of her. Then she entered the room and checked on Jingwan's situation. She put down the bed curtain and turned off the light. Then she went to the bathroom and cleaned it up, especially the bath water with calming medicine. Li Hongyuan was going out. What was more important was what happened during the day. Li Hongyuan was worried that she couldn't sleep well, so he prepared in advance. Because the medicine was put in very secretly, Jingwan didn't notice it. She was a little surprised that she slept so well. She thought that she would have insomnia. So, I'm actually heartless. Even if the sky falls down, I won't worry. Jingwan teased Li Hongyuan. It doesn't matter. I don't mind. Li Hongyuan closed his eyes and hugged Jingwan. Sleep a little longer. It's getting late. Wan, do you want me to do something? Thinking of Li Hongyuan's theory of not getting out of bed, Jingwan decisively chose to close her eyes and stay in his arms obediently. Li Hongyuan waited until Jingwan was quiet before he opened his eyes. If Jingwan saw him now, she would definitely be shocked. His originally deep and enchanting eyes were now covered with a layer of dead black fog. On the whites of his eyes, there were clearly visible blood vessels. To a certain extent, these could no longer be considered human eyes. In reality, Li Hongyuan didn't need sleep. He needed time to recover. He couldn't scare Jingwan. In the time he left the residence, 3 lions, 2 tigers, a few leopards, and a few crocodiles died in the precious beast garden. Only those who had witnessed the scene would know how bloody and terrifying the scene was. In their eyes, Li Hongyuan was not a human. He was a killing god, a demon god. He made people tremble in fear from the bottom of their hearts. After he walked out, as a shadow guard, he had to forcefully control his legs so that they wouldn't tremble within 3 feet of him. Li Hongyuan saw this and only lightly spat out 2 words, trash. The shadow guard only felt ashamed and couldn't think of anything else. Actually, Li Hongyuan was very clear-headed this time. He didn't lose his mind at all. But because he was clear-headed, it was worse. Because he thought of more things from his previous life, his actions were even more ruthless and cruel. These fierce beasts seemed to have become the people he had once killed. Blood flowed like a river in the entire capital. The smell of blood in the air didn't dissipate for 3 months. This was really not a joke. And Jingwan originally slept late. Now that she fell asleep in Li Hongyuan's arms, she didn't take too long to fall asleep. This time, she really slept quite well. This sleep lasted for most of the afternoon. It was purely because she was hungry that she woke up. Jingwan rubbed against Li Hongyuan's arms. Can we get up now? I'm so hungry. Li Hongyuan replied indifferently. He let go of Jingwan, but he didn't move. Why, you still don't want to get up? Jingwan wrapped her arms around his head and touched his nose with her nose. Li Hongyuan also stroked Jingwan's smooth and delicate back. I don't want to move. It wasn't a rare thing for the king of hell to laze in bed. He had done it occasionally in the past. Then get up and eat something before you sleep. Her voice was even lower, with a nasal sound, as if she was about to fall asleep again. Jingwan had no choice. Anyway, he moved quickly. It wouldn't be too late to call him when the things were almost ready. Jingwan got up quickly, then put down the bed curtain and called the maid in to help her freshen up. Because Li Hongyuan didn't get up, everyone's movements were very light, but it didn't hinder them from doing things quickly. Jingwan finished tidying up and got up. The maid took the things and followed her. Only Mama Gong was left. She quietly walked to the bedside. Prince, do you want to get up? Li Hongyuan had already sat up. He supported himself with one hand on the bed and the other on his bent knee. His head was back. The brocade quilt slid down to his waist, revealing his strong upper body. Of course, there were all kinds of ambiguous marks on it. Today, Jingwan was no longer a shy little wife who didn't know how to fight back and talk back. Bring a mirror. Yes. Granny Gong moved quickly and brought over a mirror of moderate size. Li Hongyuan opened his eyes in front of the mirror and threw it away. The situation was more serious than expected. Although it was not as obvious as before, there was still a problem. Let Gong Jiu come here. Tell him that I have a headache and give me 2 injections. Mama Gong frowned and took the mirror. The excuse was actually for the princess. The prince's condition was known by those who were close to him. When he came back, Mama Gong also saw clearly that Gong Jiu had already given him an injection before, but it could only speed up the recovery. It couldn't be effective immediately. Knowing that her husband had a headache, Jingwan couldn't sit still. She hurried in and lifted the bed curtain. Ah Yuan. Li Hongyuan's physical condition was definitely the best that Jingwan had ever seen. He didn't have a headache or fever at all. How could she not be worried when he suddenly had a headache? Quickly lie down. She pressed him back down and reached out to massage his temples. I'm fine. Maybe I just thought a little too much yesterday. I'll be fine after some rest. Jingwan pursed her lips and didn't say anything. What happened yesterday could only be a secret between the two of them. It couldn't be said out loud. It was hard to talk about it now. Even the mansion doctor didn't dare to look around when he entered the master's bedroom. Gong Jiu followed the procedure and checked Li Hongyuan's pulse. In fact, he knew that it was just for the princess consort to see. He also had to put on a show. Gong Jiu assured Jingwan that it was only a small problem. Wan, go and eat. I don't want to eat now. Come back and accompany me when you're done. Hearing Jingwan's obvious sigh of relief, Li Hongyuan said. Since it was only a small problem, Jingwan wouldn't be so worried that she couldn't eat. Then I'll go first. Cooperate with me. Li Hongyuan's eyes were slightly open, as if he hadn't woken up yet. He smiled lazily. I'm not a 3-year-old child. How can I be afraid of pain and act shamelessly? It's not that you're afraid of pain. It's that you're afraid of treatment. Jingwan rolled her eyes at him where no one else could see and left. As soon as Jingwan left, the atmosphere changed completely. It was cold and indifferent. Li Hongyuan took it for granted that he was the master. The others took it for granted that they were his loyal subordinates. They didn't dare to overstep their boundaries. Gong Jiu, no matter what method you use, you must return to normal in at most 6 hours. Don't worry, Wang Ye. It won't take that long. That's the best. He closed his eyes again and let Gong Jiu perform the acupuncture. When Jingwan came in again, Li Hongyuan was the only one left in the room. The bed curtain was pulled up and Li Hongyuan was sleeping quietly near the edge of the bed. He didn't have the usual terrifying aura that made people retreat when they saw him from afar. He looked very harmless and quite handsome, making people unable to take their eyes off him. Wan, are you fascinated by your husband? Li Hongyuan teased. You didn't even open your eyes. How do you know? Of course, I know exactly what Wan is like. Jingwan walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. You don't want to sleep anymore? Or do you want me to feed you something? I can't sleep. I really don't want to eat now. Come up and lie with me. Li Hongyuan lazily patted the spot beside him. That's so boring. How about I find a few travel books or stories to read to you? That's fine. There were all kinds of books in the room. Basically, they weren't serious books and were just for entertainment. After taking 2 books, Jingwan got on the bed. Li Hongyuan spontaneously lay on her lap and enjoyed it very much. Jingwan read. Although she didn't have a proper cadence, she controlled a very good rhythm. She was neither too fast nor too slow. It was very comfortable to listen to. Li Hongyuan's mind was completely empty. When he was quiet, he naturally recovered quickly. At some point, Li Hongyuan knew that his eyes were almost healed, even without a mirror. Hey, there are some blood vessels in your eyes. Does Gong Jiu know? Jingwan touched the corner of Li Hongyuan's eyes and carefully looked. I saw it before. It's fine. I didn't notice it before. Jingwan was a little annoyed. It's just acupuncture. Don't you need to take medicine? No, I feel very good now. Li Hongyuan sat up and hugged Jingwan. He rubbed his chin on her head and chuckled. What should I do if I'm hungry now? If you're hungry, of course you have to eat. What else can you do? You're really 3 years old. Even if you're 3 years old, you still know this. Jingwan patted him. Hurry up and let go. But I want to eat Wan. Li Hongyuan hugged Jingwan and rubbed her, unwilling to let go. I won't let you eat it. You have a good appetite, but I don't. What's wrong with you? You're obviously delicate and tender, and you smell so delicious. It really whets my appetite. Jingwan touched Li Hongyuan's itchy flesh, and he deliberately scratched it twice. Jingwan couldn't help laughing. No matter how she begged for mercy, it was useless. She couldn't stand it anymore, so she grabbed him and bit him hard. She struggled hard and broke free, but because she lost her footing, she directly rolled off the bed. Her entire body and mind relaxed. Li Hongyuan's reaction was slower than usual and he didn't catch her. When he heard Jingwan cry out, his expression changed. He hurriedly wanted to get off the bed, but he saw Jingwan turn over and sit up, glaring at him angrily. She was like an angry kitten, sharpening her claws to scratch someone. It was clear that she didn't fall. Li Hongyuan calmly sat back down, smiling. He propped his chin on his hand and looked at Jingwan with interest. On the other hand, Jingwan's clothes and hair were messy, and a portion of her hair was messy on her face. She looked like a little crazy woman. The more Li Hongyuan looked at her, the more amused he felt. Then, he simply laughed without restraint. Gong Mama heard Jingwan's cry of pain and unconsciously rushed in. When she saw this scene, she didn't know what to say. Young people these days, really, Gong Mama went forward to help Jingwan up. Prince and princess are just playing around. You should know your limits. Don't get hurt. Jingwan brushed the hair from her face, feeling a little embarrassed. Although he was the closest person to her, he had never been so embarrassed. Her face was a little hot. Mama doesn't need to worry. I'm fine. When Jingwan said this, Li Hongyuan directly exposed her. Mama is right. Ben Wang will pay attention in the future. Jingwan glared at him. This was considered the pleasure of the boudoir. How could he say it to a third person? Moreover, his tone was so serious. Please, the smile in his eyes should at least be more serious. He was laughing at her like this, and he didn't care at all. Mama, help me dress and have the kitchen prepare some food. She decided to ignore him. This man, the more she talked to him, the more excited he became. Yes. Does Prince want to get up? Get up. Li Hongyuan brushed the hair in front of his chest. Even if he wasn't wearing clothes, he was still the incomparably noble Jin Wangya. Gong Mama went out to give the order and came back. While Jingwan was dressing, Li Hongyuan also got up and unhurriedly dressed. Although there wasn't much to do these 2 days, he was indeed a little tired and should rest for a few more days. Although it wasn't meal time, it wasn't the first time that such a situation occurred in Jin Wangfu. The people in the kitchen were also unhurried and dealt with it with ease. At the dining table, Li Hongyuan drank a little wine. The war just started, the situation is not too chaotic. Wan, take some time and send away all the servant girls around you. Jingwan nodded. The originally scheduled time was around this time. Just in time to make some people happy. Jingwan was quite teasing. Li Hongyuan didn't care, they followed Ben Wang. Ben Wang has been looking for a wife for more than 10 years. Their level is still far from it. Jingwan almost spat out the food in her mouth. This was not shameful but proud. Jingwan was completely desperate about this man's face. However, at Jingwan's side, there were Mei, Lan, Zhu, and Ju, Baishao and Hei Mei, plus Fu Rong. Among the first four, Qing Ju was the most lively. She was originally a 17-year-old girl, but she refused to marry no matter what. Speaking of which, there was no one by her side who gave her a bad example, so how could she have such an idea? As for Hei Mei, she seemed to have a tendency to grow a little crooked. She became more and more passionate about martial arts and didn't like men. Then there was Fu Rong, a brothel girl who was violently disfigured. She originally didn't want to marry, let alone now. Usually, when Jingwan went out, she basically wouldn't follow. As for the remaining four husbands, other than imperial bodyguard Qian, there was one who was part of Jingwan's dowry, one who was also a bodyguard of the Wang Fu, whose parents were servants, and one who was the son of the steward of the Wang Fu's outer courtyard. They were all personally supervised by Jingwan. She called the four people in front of her. Because she was bullied by Li Hongyuan, she couldn't do anything to men, so she didn't treat these people with respect. Facing Jingwan's coldness, the four people were a little scared. Other than imperial bodyguard Qian who knew the reason, the other three people were a little at a loss. What did they do wrong to make Wang Fei unhappy? Even if imperial bodyguard Qian knew, he couldn't do anything. Wasn't it right to take the blame for Wang Fei? Besides, they were going to marry the people around Wang Fei, so they had to accept it. Jingwan was cold, but at most, she would say a few words verbally. Compared with the fighting power of the King of Hell, they were really too weak. Among the four maids who were going to be married, only Qinglan had parents and brothers. So, Nanny Gong and Jingwan's wet nurse were probably needed to act as the maternal family to send them off. As for the men, it was best to have elders. If there were no elders, she would find a way to deal with them. According to Jingwan's idea, the four maids should be married slowly one by one, at least in 2 rounds. However, Li Hongyuan rejected the idea without hesitation. My 4 maids, Wan Wan, are going to be married at one time. Wan Wan has her own people. It's better not to favor one and discriminate against the other. Jingwan wanted to say, it's obviously your decision, okay? But after thinking about it, she gave up. It was impossible to reason with this kind of person. If they were going to get married together, then they were going to get married together. Therefore, the Luo family still paid attention to Jin Wangfu to see if anything happened. As a result, in nearly 10 days, Jingwan's maids were going to get married. This was the biggest thing. Well, it was really a waste of effort. Nothing happened at all. After all, it was a matter of the Wangfu and it was only the maids getting married. Naturally, it wouldn't cause any waves. Le Chengdi also sent people to pay attention to the situation of Jin Wangfu. Although that evil creature's son was still angry with him, he didn't cause any trouble, so he didn't care anymore. There were a lot of government affairs, plus the war in the northwest. He was so busy that he didn't have time to enter the harem. Coaxing his son and whatnot could be delayed. In reality, as Li Hongyuan expected, Le Chengdi wouldn't really disregard the people and soldiers of the northwest just to harm Fu Yunting. Battle reports came in one after another. In reality, Fu Yunting was worthy of being called a tiger from a family of generals. When he arrived at the front lines, he used thunderous methods to stabilize the situation. At the same time, he also carried out a moderate counterattack and won. Although it wasn't a big victory, it still had an encouraging effect when Qi Yuan was retreating. At least, it didn't make the Qi Yuan army think that the Xiongnu army was invincible and flee. In reality, whether it was the imperial court or Fu Yunting, they all knew that the situation wasn't so optimistic. Because the Xiongnu army was fighting too smoothly, to a certain extent, they were slacking and underestimating the Qi Yuan army. Fu Yunting only won because he caught them off guard. When the Xiongnu army started to pay attention, it would only be harder to fight later. Le Chengdi didn't know much about military affairs. Because Fu Yunting won the first battle, his face was gloomy. Those who didn't know the reason thought that he knew the key point, so he didn't have a good expression. Therefore, they all tried to persuade him. In the process, they also broke apart the things inside and flattered Luchengdi, saying that he knew how to use people well. Luchengdi didn't bat an eyelid and understood the situation inside clearly. However, when he was flattered, he almost vomited blood. If his original intention was like this, he could accept it calmly. The problem was that this wasn't the case. When he heard the flattery, it sounded like mockery. However, he couldn't reveal his true feelings. In order to stabilize the people's hearts, some courtiers suggested that Luchengdi should play up this achievement appropriately. Luchengdi waved his hand and allowed it. Obviously, in his heart, he held Fu Yunting up so high that it would be tragic if he fell down. Especially when he knew some of the actual situation. Once he failed, the exaggerated merits this time could be pinned on his head, thinking that he was lying about the battle achievements. At that time, it would be more than just one crime. However, Luchengdi's imagination was beautiful. The problem was that he had a son who was good at making things difficult for him. Therefore, things wouldn't go as he wished. Regarding Fu Yunting, this was only the beginning of his grievances. As time passed, Fu Yunting would only get more and more successful. Luchengdi could only continue to hold on to him and find an excuse to punish him, but the courtiers and the people wouldn't allow it. In the end, he would probably be like the previous emperors of Qi Yuan. His scheme failed, and he would make the Fu family into a position that couldn't be touched easily. To a certain extent, it was quite strange that the Fu family was able to survive until now. Of course, no matter how fierce the war in the northwest was, to the people in the capital, they would still do what they were supposed to do. Eating, drinking, playing, indulging in a life of luxury. On the surface, perhaps they would restrain themselves a little, but in private, without seeing the cruelty of war, it was useless to just listen to it. However, there was another person who couldn't sit still at all, and that was He Zhihai. While the Northwest was fiercely fighting, he was holed up in the capital, Moldy. That's right, Moldy. There were too many aristocrats in the capital, and if he wasn't careful, he would provoke someone he shouldn't provoke. He Zhihai also knew this, so he tried his best not to go out. After all, he was actually someone who would get into trouble for no reason. That's right, some troubles would come knocking on his door for no reason. He Zhihai himself didn't know how it came about, so he was also depressed. If it was just this, then it would be fine. The problem was, the door of Jin Qinhuang Fu was also closed to him, just like at the very beginning. He Zhihai wanted to use the old method to block people, but he couldn't do anything about it. He Zhihai felt that he was about to go crazy from holding himself in. He wanted to volunteer to fight, but unfortunately, he didn't have the qualifications to go to court. What He Zhihai didn't know was that he didn't even have the chance to submit his memorial. Before he even left the house, his old mother and grandmother had joined hands to change it. And all of this was at the behest of Jin Qinhuang. Jin Qinhuang's role in the war in the northeast, no matter how much the He family tried to deceive themselves, they couldn't deny it. If Jin Qinhuang needed it, then they simply couldn't refuse. And for the past few months, Jin Qinhuang didn't make any movements, so the He family could only hold back. Now, after receiving Jin Qinhuang's instructions, even if He Zhenwei hadn't returned, the He family couldn't be negligent. No matter what the reason was, in short, Jin Qinhuang had his own goals and wouldn't want to harm Qi Yuan. Moreover, if it was really necessary, the imperial court would naturally call for them. There was no need for them to ask for help. Under these circumstances, He Zhihai finally couldn't bear it anymore and climbed up the wall of Jin Qinhuang Fu one night. However, as soon as he jumped down, he was caught red-handed. Climbing over the wall was a bit embarrassing. However, after a moment of awkwardness, little tyrant he shamelessly stated that he wanted to see Jin Qinhuang. The people in the Fu didn't stop him and directly took him to the study. In the study, there was a large map hanging on the wall and a large sand table on the table. The situation in the northwest was completely described. Not only Li Hongyuan, but also the left governor Qin Tianming. Qin Tianming and He Zhihai looked at each other. He Zhihai didn't understand the situation in the capital and didn't have any interest in understanding it. He didn't even have any impression of Qin Tianming, so he didn't have any strange reaction and obediently greeted Li Hongyuan. Qin Tianming was different, but in the end, he was a wily old fox. He didn't show it on his face, but in his heart, he was a bit speechless. Jin Qinhuang was indeed powerful, he could even take in the He family. Obviously, seeing He Zhihai at this time, he didn't think that Li Hongyuan only had a friendship from fighting with He Zhihai. Li Hongyuan didn't even lift his eyelids. Since you're here, then follow and take a look. The number of people in the Xiongnu army, the general distribution of the situation, and where the Xiongnu were from the west and Xiongnu were all marked out. I can't say that it's 100% accurate, but it's 80% accurate. What do you think? Qin Tianming was shocked at Li Hongyuan's ability to grasp information. It must be known that the current situation of the imperial court regarding the Xiongnu army was only sporadic, but Jin Qinhuang was able to reach this stage. Therefore, the other princes were being played in the palm of his hand. It really wasn't wrong at all. At this time, the princes who hadn't left the palace yet were actually lucky. They weren't like the other elder brothers, who were almost played to death but still kept in the dark. Therefore, towards his son-in-law, Qin Tianming's heart was filled with sympathy. He Zhihai didn't have that many thoughts. Who was this Jin Qinhuang the only person who could make him lie down so easily. Therefore, no matter what kind of shocking thing he did, wasn't it a matter of course? As a qualified fanboy, he only needed to think about the questions asked by the person he revered. Isn't the battle line a little too long? When we first received the urgent report, it was only within one county. Now, it has expanded to 3 counties. The Xiongnu people's appetite is really not small. After that, Li Hongyuan inserted some small flags into the sand. They were the deployment of Qi Yuan's troops. Each flag represented 10,000 people. After this, the situation became even more obvious. Qi Yuan's troops have been completely scattered. Qi Yuan's troops are actually better in terms of overall combat power. Against the Xiongnu people, the more scattered they are, the more disadvantageous it is. Qin Tianming looked at the sand table and pointed with his finger. Is Fu Yunting in this position now? Yes. Li Hongyuan inserted the small flag that represented the commander-in-chief. Fu Yunting is in the right position. After all, there was a pass behind him. If the Xiongnu army couldn't pass through the pass, it would be very difficult for them to enter Qi Yuan. Although it wasn't that there was no other way, it wasn't suitable for marching. Even if they used a small group of surprise troops, they might be wiped out by Qi Yuan's troops who were familiar with the terrain. In Fu Yunting's layout, there was definitely this step. That's right, that's right. However, the situation is still quite disadvantageous. After all, he is young and has never led an army before. I don't know if he can command the troops well. Qin Tianming frowned. Whether he can or can't, we will know based on his performance. The situation is just disadvantageous. It's not a one-sided disadvantage. There are many ways to turn the situation around. Li Hongyuan threw away the remaining small flags in his hand and sat behind the desk. He clasped his hands and looked at the sand table. His expression was unusually calm. Your Highness, are the Xiongnu people and the Xiongnu people at odds? He Zhihai stared at the sand table for a moment and asked. Odds? That can't be. Aren't their troops mixed in many places? If they are really at odds, shouldn't they go their own way? It's obviously a smokescreen. If our troops can see that they are at odds, it will be easy for us to come up with a battle plan. Once their alliance splits, as long as we pin down one side, the other side will be replaced by Qi Yuan's troops. Compared to the Xiongnu people's bravery, Qi Yuan is better at scheming, He Zhihai said. Young General He, are you guessing or are you certain? Qin Tianming asked solemnly. Of course it's just a guess. I know nothing about the war in the northwest. I'm just looking at this. How can I know the specific situation? If I really know, why would I waste any effort? Wouldn't I be able to destroy the Xiongnu people and other countries easily? Qi Yuan would have long become the #1 overlord. The corners of Qin Tianming's mouth twitched. Even if he was a deep-fried dough stick, there was nothing he could do about these, very creative, young generals. If they were really at odds with each other, the success rate of scheming to break up the alliance was higher. If they were not at odds with each other, they might be used against. Of course, when it came to scheming, as long as there was no final result, it was hard to say. No one could be sure that their plan would succeed 100%. What does it matter if they are at odds with each other? Li Hongyuan said faintly. It was possible for a country to have internal strife, let alone an alliance between two countries. He Zhihai and Qin Tianming both chose to shut their mouths. In their opinion, Prince Jin already had a plan. Wang Ye, what about the former Wei and southern Qi? What's the situation? If they both send troops to Qi Yuan at this time, then Qi Yuan was rich and vast, but the location of such a big piece of fat meat was not good. It was like a pack of wolves circling around. There's no movement for now. The former Wei is in internal strife and can't care about Qi Yuan. It's hard to say about southern Qi. Southern Qi had placed many spies in Qi Yuan long ago. No one would believe that southern Qi had no ambitions for Qi Yuan. In Li Hongyuan's previous life, when Qi Yuan and the Xiongnu were anxious, southern Qi did not make a move. Later on, when Fu Yunting was in trouble and Qi Yuan lost a lot of soldiers and fell into a slump, southern Qi brazenly made a move. However, not long after the war started, southern Qi suddenly withdrew their troops. Because there was a fierce rebellion in Qi Yuan, the southern Qi court had no choice but to withdraw the troops that invaded Qi Yuan and settle down first. It had to be said that Qi Yuan's luck was good. Otherwise, no matter how capable Li Hongyuan thought he would not be able to do anything. In this life, Li Hongyuan had stirred up a storm in the former Wei and southern Qi early on. The effect of the former Wei was obvious. Southern Qi had not made a move yet. Li Hongyuan was not sure if his plan would work, so he was not sure if southern Qi would send troops. Moreover, many things had changed. In that case, there could be unpredictable changes in other countries. Li Hongyuan was very calm and rational. The events of his previous life were only a reference to a certain extent. He would not completely apply them to the present. However, regardless of whether southern Qi would send troops or not, he had a strategy to deal with it. Alright, you can go back. Do what you need to do. This official will take his leave. Qin Tianming knew the nature of Prince Jin. If he could avoid contact, he would quickly leave, so he was very obedient. He Zhihai was different. He thickened his face and moved closer to Li Hongyuan. Your Highness, Li Hongyuan glanced at him. If you want to go to the battlefield, there will be plenty of opportunities. But now is not the time. Go back and stay obediently. Don't think about coming to find Ben Wang. Otherwise, Ben Wang has ways to lock you up for 1.5 years. Don't talk about seeing people, you won't even be able to see a bug. If you don't believe me, you can try. https://11/118007/125733370. HTML. After making a report, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Chapter 492. Jingwan brought some food to the study, only to see Li Hongyuan alone. Has everyone left? Li Hongyuan raised his head and answered, waving his hand. Jingwan put the things on the table and walked forward. Li Hongyuan pulled her into his arms. Wan, what do you think of the current situation? Su Kong pointed at the sand table. Yuan thinks too highly of me. This thing, I definitely don't understand the slightest bit. It doesn't matter if you don't understand, you can learn, no one is born with it. Then, Li Hongyuan explained to Jingwan, minding his own business. Speaking of which, Jin Qinhuang usually didn't have this kind of temperament of seeing the wind and rain. Jingwan hurriedly stopped him. Yuan, a lot of things require talent. Let's not talk about whether I have talent in this area. Even if I do, it's not something that can be learned in a short time. Moreover, Yuan, you have to know that there aren't many all-rounders like you in this world. Wan's compliments, this husband accepts. Li Hongyuan chuckled. Wan, you don't have to belittle yourself, you know, this sand table originally came from your hands. Jingwan raised her eyebrows. I thought that this thing was already popularized in Qiyuan. Making something is just taking advantage of my previous life. After all, it's something that even children can have. It's different from fighting a war. But if you let me do logistics, that is, military supplies and fodder, it shouldn't be a problem. But I definitely still need to learn. No need to learn. Wan can learn without a teacher in this area. For example, in her previous life, she did a good job of delivering fodder to the northwest, establishing her prestige among a group of men. Unfortunately, she stood on the wrong side, although her position wasn't chosen by herself. Otherwise, perhaps she could rely on her weak body to set off a different storm. Is that so? If there's a chance, I have to try. Jingwan actually knew what Li Hongyuan was referring to. After all, he mentioned it before. If there's a chance. Li Hongyuan smiled but didn't speak. But how could there be such a chance? In his previous life, there was no other choice, but now it was completely different. How could there be a need for her to do such a thing? It's already late, still not resting? I've already finished dealing with your official business. Seeing that Wan is getting more and more handy, then, in the future, those are your matters. You mean, you don't even look at it? You're really at ease? What's there to be worried about? Anyway, I haven't seen it for a long time. I just need the secret guard to tell me what's going on. Jingwan was speechless. Aren't you afraid of making a mistake? You've got guts. With Wan's careful consideration, she's careful, Even if she's not familiar with all the links and makes mistakes in the middle, it's fine. Now, there's no need to be so careful. If the problem is bigger, they'll report it in time to deal with it, so Wan can be at ease and do it boldly. Since you say so, then I'll do it. I'm also very happy to be able to help you. Especially the feeling of working hard with the person she loved, it was really not bad. Alright, from a certain point of view, Jingwan was actually competing with herself in her husband's memories. Since they had missed out on getting to know each other, they had to make full use of the time they spent together to add more things to each other's memories. That's my wish. Jingwan smiled and kissed him, then said in an unusually bad mood, it's time to sleep. Li Hongyuan laughed and stood up with her, returning to the bedroom. After the two of them left the study, Imperial bodyguard Qian and a few others entered the study and destroyed the things that shouldn't have existed in the study at an extremely fast speed. In reality, they had only used a different method to hide those things. They still looked like they were in a mess. Those who didn't know the rules behind it wouldn't be able to restore them even if they found all the parts. Moreover, these things would be completely disposed of every once in a while and replaced with new parts. The method of disassembling and hiding them would also change. Therefore, there really wasn't anything dangerous in Jin Qinhuang Fu. Just as they went out, they saw Fu Rong coming over with a lantern. In fact, Li Hongyuan's subordinates had never relaxed their vigilance towards this person who came from a brothel and had a clear understanding of her background. In their eyes, innocence was completely without any doubt. Fu Rong was different. Her background seemed clear, but she could completely borrow someone else's identity. Wang Fei's kindness wasn't a reason for them to lose their vigilance. Moreover, if there was a problem under their eyes, they didn't need to mingle and could all be sent back to the furnace to be remade. It's so late, Miss Fu Rong still hasn't slept. Fu Rong's face was always hidden under the veil, neither too fast nor too slow. She paused. Tonight, it's Nubi's turn to keep watch for Wang Ye and Wang Fei. Wang Fei let Nubi come to take back the food in the study. Imperial bodyguard Qian nodded and took the things from the hands of another bodyguard beside him. Originally, I was going to send it to Wang Ye and Wang Fei. It's so dark here, I'll accompany Mississippi Master's things, regardless of whether the master would eat them or not, naturally couldn't be handled by someone who didn't trust, especially by a person alone. Many thanks to Imperial bodyguard Qian. It's just that this delay made me a bit late. Bai Xiao, don't blame me. Fu Rong said with a bit of teasing. Ever since Imperial bodyguard Qian settled the matter with Bai Xiao, he had been teased a lot, so he had already become thick-skinned. This was completely not painful at all. Miss, you're thinking too much. We're all serving Wang Ye and Wang Fei. How could she blame you for such a small matter? On the contrary, if I let you go back like this, she'll be angry with me when she knows. After saying a few words like this, when they really went back, they were a few steps away from each other, keeping a distance from each other. They didn't say anything along the way. In the end, the food was given to Fu Rong in front of Nanny Gong. Imperial bodyguard Qian is a man who has tender feelings for women. Nanny Gong said lightly. Imperial bodyguard Qian's forehead was immediately covered with cold sweat. Nanny, are you praising me or harming me? Of course, I'm praising you. Although the girls around the princess are slaves, they are actually more delicate and precious than many girls from humble families. When they get married, they are all given good titles. You rough men should be more respectful and help them when you meet them. Is there anything wrong with Nanny's words? They definitely had a deep understanding of the power of this female bodyguard. Originally, as a secret guard, she was much older than all of them. Logically speaking, she was not suitable to be a secret guard. However, she was more outstanding than most of the men. Moreover, as a secret guard, they basically did some shady business. However, this female bodyguard was as upright as usual and always talked with a serious face, which often made people speechless. To be honest, more than one person was relieved that the female bodyguard was sent to serve Wang Fei before she married into Wang Fei's family. In fact, more than one person was relieved that the female bodyguard was sent to serve Wang Fei for more than a year. In addition, the female bodyguard had been loyal to her duty and put Wang Fei first in everything as if she didn't know them. Now, she had no scruples. Nanny, you're right. I'll definitely talk to my brothers when I return. As the head of the guards, Imperial bodyguard Qian should lead the way. However, it's okay to lead the good side. As for the bad side, it's better to remind them not to follow suit. Nanny Gong seemed to have no intention of letting him go at all. This implied meaning made Imperial bodyguard Qian's liver tremble. He seemed to understand that she was referring to him, seducing Bai Xiao, but he didn't dare to confirm it. Imperial bodyguard Qian actually felt that he was wronged. He was just helping out occasionally and the number of times he met her could be counted with one's fingers. He didn't have any hope at all. Who knew that Bai Xiao would take a fancy to him? Wasn't this irrefutable evidence of his seduction? He caused the female bodyguard to set her eyes on him. Imperial bodyguard Qian, do you not understand what I mean? I understand. Nanny, don't worry. I will definitely. So, Imperial Bodyguard Qian also knows that he has done something bad. So, you are still doing it knowingly? The sweat on Imperial Bodyguard Qian's forehead became more and more obvious. He wanted to run away immediately. Jingwan had seen enough of the drama behind the curtain. She laughed foolishly and then walked out. Imperial Bodyguard Qian, go back and rest. Imperial Bodyguard Qian felt as if he had been granted amnesty. I'll take my leave. He ran away. It's just a small matter. Nanny, you don't have to take it so seriously. Jingwan knew that Nanny Gong was a little brooding about the private relationship between Imperial Bodyguard Qian and Bai Xiao. Of course, evil practices should be absolutely eliminated. Especially those who follow the example of their superiors. They should be punished properly. Well, Jingwan indicated that she didn't know what to do with Nanny Gong. You're right. If there's anything wrong with these people, you can scold them. Nanny Gong wanted to say something but stopped. However, she still abided by her duty. Her master didn't allow her to lecture them. Jingwan's eyes fell on Fu Rong. Take these things and share them with the others. You don't need to keep watch tonight. Just come over early tomorrow. Yes, Your Highness. Fu Rong never disobeyed Jingwan's words, no matter whether it was right or wrong. Nanny, you should also rest early. Jingwan lifted the curtain and entered the room. Li Hongyuan's eyes fell on Jingwan. Your nanny really wants to lecture me. Follow the example of their superiors? Oh. What do you mean? Jingwan was surprised. Is it improper to visit a lady's room at night? Jingwan remembered now. Before they got married, this bastard had really done this kind of thing, and it was more than once. You deserve it. I'm really sorry. This time, it's definitely more than what Wan knows. Jingwan's face was a little dark. In this case, there must be more times that she didn't know. When was the earliest time? The earliest time? Li Hongyuan thought for a while. When you first came to the capital, the night of the fire in the flower market. He didn't hide it at all and wasn't afraid of Jingwan's revenge. At that time, they weren't engaged yet. Jingwan wanted to slap him. You can't stop me, you can't protect your daughter's reputation, and I can't tell you. It made you dislike me. Thinking about it, you, as a nanny, are really aggrieved. Li Hongyuan said lightly with a hint of ridicule. Nanny Gong didn't like him. As for Nanny Gong, who once stopped him from getting close to Jingwan, Li Hongyuan also didn't like her. Li Hongyuan, that's enough. What? You know that I won't be able to find anything even if I dig up the old scores, so you're proud, right? It would have been better if he didn't say it. Now that he said it, Jingwan vaguely remembered that there seemed to be a few nights when she was sleeping in a daze. She seemed to have dreamed of being intimate with a man. She remembered that pair of eyes very clearly. At that time, she was still wondering why she would have such a lewd dream. After a long time, it wasn't a dream at all. It was really a dream. She was really angry. Wan, you can return it now. This husband doesn't mind at all. Li Hongyuan deliberately pulled at his collar. Return it? If she returned it, she would be taken advantage of. Who told her to be a woman? She was born weak in this aspect. The best way was still to ignore him. The living king of hell tried to provoke his wife's anger so that she would take the initiative to settle accounts with him. From there, he would take advantage of her and then do some shameful things. However, his wife didn't fall for it. But as a natural carnivore, the living king of hell never had the personality of waiting for the fatty meat to fall into his mouth. If the mountain doesn't come, then come to me. I'll just go to the mountain. How simple was that? The next day, because the horse track hadn't set the time for the next horse race, there was actually someone who had the guts to directly come and ask. Of course, going to Jin Wangfu, this kind of thing, the average person didn't have He Zhihai's ability to go alone. That was because a few dandy had made an appointment. All their courage seemed to have completely withered and they walked to the gate of Jin Wangfu. Trembling with fear, they pushed and shoved. Should they withdraw? Should they withdraw? Should they withdraw? Should they withdraw? However, before they could decide, the people of Jin Wangfu took a step forward and politely invited them in. It wasn't that Jin Wangfu had opened the door to welcome guests. To them, Jin Wangfu was simply like a dragon's pool and a tiger's den. After all, when they were guests with many people, Jin Wangfu wouldn't have noticed them. Now, it was completely different. After entering, they didn't know where to put their hands and feet. It had to be said that these people were usually like devil incarnate. Even if it was their own father, they could choke and stomp their feet. The servants of Jin Wangfu who served tea and refreshments also felt that it was strange. It must be known that since the opening of Jin Wangfu, this kind of thing was considered the first time. Although there was He Zhihai as the vanguard before, it was different. Every time He Zhihai came, he would be directly brought to the martial arts arena, tidied up by their own Wang Ye, and then directly thrown out without even a cup of water to drink. The situation could be said to be the difference between heaven and earth. Therefore, they naturally knew that their Wang Ye's reputation outside was very strong, but they intuitively felt that this was definitely the first time. It was even worse than what they had expected. Was Wang Ye really so scary? Completely not. Some of them had been in the Wangfu for a few years and had only seen Wang Ye a few times. Not to mention, after marrying Wang Fei, Jin Wangfu was definitely more peaceful than any other residence. They really wanted to tell them that there was really no need to be so afraid. Wang Ye wasn't someone who would find trouble for no reason. However, they were only servants in the end and didn't dare to overstep their status to chat with these young masters. After drinking a cup of tea, his trembling heart calmed down a little. Soon after, they were led by the servant girls to another reception room. It had to be said that these people were good at eating, drinking, and playing. They were naturally very skilled in coaxing girls. Seeing this beautiful servant girl in her dressing, they reckoned that she was someone who served in the inner courtyard. Perhaps she was even by master's side. Their eyes turned and called her older sister, older sister. Their mouths were especially sweet, just to fish for information. Of course, whether it was by Jin Wangfu's side or Jin Qin Wangfei's side, they didn't dare to speak rudely, let alone speak flirtatiously. And this servant girl had indeed replaced a few of the older servant girls who had married and was new to serve by Jingwan's side. Although she was still a second-rank servant girl in name, she had also taken over a portion of Jingwan's personal matters. These people had definitely gone through very strict training. They weren't considered old, but their minds were very clear. They smiled sweetly and responded. The things that they wanted to know but were not important were all said. It gave people a feeling that it was very easy to fish for information. In the reception room, there was a screen. Only then did they know that the one who received them was Jin Qin Wangfei. That heart that almost reached their throats finally settled down. After sitting for a while, Jingwan arrived and said a few polite words. These dandy were dandy, but they were also very good at flattering and currying favor with people. Otherwise, with their virtue, how could they still have their old mother and grandmother at home to protect and dote on them dearly? At this time, they also had a sense of propriety in flattering Jingwan. It had to be said that Jingwan had never lacked people flattering and currying favor since she was young. Especially after marrying into Jin Wangfu, there was Muan, that number one lackey. Muan was basically well-behaved at Li Hongyuan's side. In front of Jingwan, it was almost like tearing off his face as a human and swallowing it. Jingwan was not used to it at first, but after a long time, she calmed down. The flattery of servants and the compliments of these young masters were definitely two different things. The starting point was completely different. Jingwan also felt it for the first time and felt that it was a bit novel. After chatting for a while, the atmosphere became more harmonious and they finally talked about the main topic. It was no wonder that these living ancestors were so enthusiastic about the horse race. Exciting, fun and lively things were really not easy to find. Although there was a gambling nature in it, the horse race was an elegant thing. However, this thing was not something that anyone could organize. Because if one was too greedy for money, if they were not careful, it would attract the dissatisfaction of those in power and it would also cause many people to be jealous. Jin Qinhuang was in a very special position and no one could easily touch him. Moreover, Jin Qinhuang had a lot of money and there was no need to worry that he would fake it for money. To a certain extent, it could be called fair and just. This was something that others could not do. Whether one lost or won, it was not entirely based on luck. Based on various reasons, it was impossible for others to imitate this. These people just wanted to have a horse race every day. If there was no movement in the next round, they could only brace themselves and come. Some of the rules are being adjusted. If there are no accidents, this time should be set on the first day of each month. You can also listen to the general situation. That is, in the future, there will be no more posts. Those who are willing to let their horses participate can go to the manor to sign up. The number of matches will be set to 10. The champion of each match will compete once again, for a total of 11 matches. Excluding other people's betting horses, the top 3 will be rewarded. At that time, all the registered horses will be numbered and the horses will be drawn to decide the horses that will participate. Each horse must be at least 2 matches away from being able to participate again. Of course, if there are less than 100 horses in a particular match, there will be no drawing of lots. In addition, the owners of the horses will be anonymous. In addition to the horse race, there will also be equestrian performances. Regarding this point, the nature is similar to opera and is only for the public to watch. Then there will be the day of the second day when the horse race will be open to settle personal grievances. It will probably be a horse fight between 2 people. That is the general situation. In terms of the details, it will be further improved. That, Wang Fei Nyang Nyang, according to your meaning, anyone can sign up? Of course not. As for the specifics, we will make arrangements. These people naturally look down on businessmen. If they were pulled in now, there would probably be a lot of complaints. However, there was still room for manipulation. After all, businessmen were so rich that it would be a pity to let them go. Moreover, in order to not cause any accidents, there would be restrictions on the bets. As long as it involved gambling, there would always be people who would not care about it and would make a mess and lose their family fortune. Sure enough, the membership system still had to be brought out. First, they had to figure out the family's property and apply for the corresponding level. According to the level, the maximum amount of bets could be set. If it was not within the level, no matter how rich they were, they could only bet the minimum amount. Jingwan was careless and distracted. Sure enough, she was also a money grubber. Of course, when Jingwan said this to Li Hongyuan only said that she was soft-hearted and did not see anyone who opened a casino and limited the amount of bets. Jingwan retorted that she opened a horse farm, not a casino. Li Hongyuan gave her 4 words, deceiving yourself and others. Well, regardless of whether she was deceiving herself or others, she still had to have a bottom line. However, these people did not care about the rules. As long as they could get the answer they wanted, it was enough. However, 3 times a month, wasn't it a little too little? Well, the horse farm did not belong to them. They had no right to question this point. Then, will it start from the first day of next month? There are only 2 days left. Will it be too late? Why don't we postpone it to the 11th? The Dragon Boat Festival is coming soon. It will be too late. How can it be too late? It doesn't conflict with the Dragon Boat Festival at all. Jingwan laughed. Well, then I will have to trouble you to go out and tell others about this. No matter what the situation is on the first day of the month, just treat it as a joke. Wang Fei Nyang, rest assured. Leave this matter to us. We guarantee that on the first day of the month, it will be lively and will not be desolate. Other matters might not be like this, but on this matter, each and every one of them was extremely enthusiastic. Without using a single copper as an advertising fee, in a very short period of time, all the people in the capital who should know about it knew about it. And at Jin Qinhuang's manor, there was a long queue. Although they had not seen the horses yet, but each person had at least one horse. Some even had 7 or 8 horses. That night, the number of horses that Jingwan received for the registration had already exceeded 300. Jingwan looked at Li Hongyuan. I really underestimated the people of the capital. At this time, playing like this, aren't they afraid that the emperor will get angry? You don't care about it, but it's hard to say about the others. Say, if the emperor completely tidies them up, can't our horse farm be closed? It doesn't matter. When the time comes, I will go and plead for leniency for them. Li Hongyuan said rather calmly. Was it to plead for leniency, or specifically to anger Laozi? Jingwan once again lit a candle for Luchengdi. This impeachment report, as expected, was sent to Luchengdi's imperial desk the next day. Speaking of which, this impeachment report was not necessarily deliberately not going with Li Hongyuan. Speaking of which, it was still a loyal duty. Sitting in that position, with so many things happening in the capital, one could not ignore it. Luchengdi's eyebrows were throbbing. However, after thinking about it, he still suppressed this matter and pretended not to know. Some courtiers were originally prepared to persuade Luchengdi that the current war situation was good. If all entertainment activities were banned, wouldn't it be suspected of singing pessimistic about the war? It was also extremely unfavorable to stabilize the people's hearts. Moreover, the precious horses raised by each family were basically not in the ranks of war horses. Thus, there was no need to care so much. From this, it could be seen how powerful the living king of hell was. Even the courtiers spoke up for him. The result of biting Jin Qinhuang and not letting him go was far more serious than letting him go. The Bai family was the best portrayal. Although the Bai family had only themselves to blame, the reason was still the same. Even if there was no cuckold on top of their head, they could still be cuckolded. This kind of thing did not necessarily need evidence. It only needed to create some rumors to cause a devastating blow. It should be known that because of the Bai family, many men were paranoid, especially those who only had one seedling at home. They almost really caused trouble. Moreover, when some people investigated, they really found a problem in the backyard. It's just that the emperor really favored this son. He didn't need the courtiers to help him explain. His liver was clearly angry, but he still didn't flare up. Not only did he not flare up at Jin Qinhuang, but the other courtiers were also the same. They were not reprimanded by Luchengdi because of the evil spawn in their family. At this time, nothing happened. Instead, it was a bit uncomfortable. However, no one had masochistic tendencies. It was naturally best to live in peace. For this kind of result, the living king of hell expressed a bit of regret. Under this kind of situation, the first horse race after the new rules were set was held in full swing. Seeing this kind of scene, who would think that the borders of Qi Yuan were raging with the flames of war? And because it was a new rule, people didn't understand the horses. Those who bet were completely relying on their feelings and luck. Of course, before the race, all the horses that participated in the race were first looked at by people. If there was a Bo Lu, then sorry, it was destined to win. Of course, the premise was that there weren't two similar horses that were unlucky enough to be drawn into the same race. And if the more favored horse happened to have a little problem, then sorry, the Bo Lu lacked luck and could only admit that he was unlucky. As the saying goes, horses of 1,000 li were common, but a Bo Lu was not common. Those who truly understood horses and could see the advantages and disadvantages at a glance were the minority of the minority. Just like this, on this day, more than 1,000,000 taels of silver flowed. More than half of it went into Jin Qinhuang's pocket. Look, this money was so easy to earn. Of course, as the horse that came out on top in the end, it also earned a lot of money for its owner. As a person who had always spent money, this time hugging a good few tens of thousands of taels and being watched by the whole family was a rare sight. Don't mention how proud he was. And among them, there was an inconspicuous horse that also won tens of thousands of taels. It came from a small family. Because it was anonymous, there was no need to worry about being targeted. It couldn't be better. In fact, Lu Chengdi also sent people to take a look. He just wanted to know what kind of situation could attract so many people in the capital. Then, after listening to the inner chamberlain's report, Lu Chengdi coldly glanced over. The inner chamberlain was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. Lu Chengdi's heart was especially bitter. A pile of things, his hair was about to fall out, but that son was so free and unfettered. He was so angry that he wanted to fiercely whip that evil creature. However, he didn't dare to do it. After all, that evil creature still didn't give him, this old man, a good face. As an old man, he could be considered as the only one. Then, gradually, some people found that it didn't seem to be a bad thing. For most people, although they lost some money, the evil creatures in the family spent less money. First of all, they didn't go out to fool around all day. Although they might be closer to the horses at home, no matter how close they wouldn't sleep with the horses. Moreover, no matter how well the horses were raised, the money spent was actually a small amount. Not to mention the old men, their wives would first pay out of their own pockets. If they wanted a horse, it didn't matter, they could buy another one. As long as they went back to sleep in the house every day and didn't hug all kinds of little demons outside, money was absolutely a trivial matter. Their wives were so sensible that the relationship between the two of them was definitely good. Regarding such a result, they really didn't know what to say. Then, the hearts of those who didn't participate began to stir. It was not convenient for them to do it, so they let others do it. Especially those old men who loved horses. They didn't want to win or lose, but they were like some big shots who raised flowers and plants. They had a superior mentality that they had good things and others didn't have, which made them particularly proud. When such a situation occurred, Li Hongyuan also knew that it was time to take action. The next day, Jingwan sent someone to send a banknote of 200,000 taels of silver to Lu Chengdi. The war in the northwest was anxious, and his daughter-in-law was anxious, but there was nothing she could do. She specially offered the money obtained from the horse race as a token of her sincerity, hoping that the emperor would not dislike it. Lu Chengdi's anger was immediately extinguished. Sure enough, his son was filial. Although he didn't admit it, he still asked his wife to send money. Although his son usually only annoyed him, at the critical moment, he only did practical things, unlike other people who only spoke empty words. Everyone found that there was a subtle change in Lu Chengdi's mood. Those who had their own information channels all knew what was going on, but they really didn't know what to say. And the others who were disliked by Lu Chengdi could only secretly vomit blood. First, they weren't as rich and overbearing as Jin Qinhuang, and 200,000 taels, to Jin Qinhuang, was simply petty. Only Lu Chengdi felt that he was good in every aspect. Second, even if they had money, they couldn't take it out. If they casually took it out, it would mean that they had ulterior motives to buy people's hearts. Therefore, as long as Lu Chengdi's heart was biased, then no matter what they did, it would be wrong. However, in this way, those who wanted to send their beloved horses to participate in the competition didn't have to hide it. They could be magnanimous and occasionally slip away to watch the competition, to feel the atmosphere that the younger generation was very enthusiastic about. On the 10th day, Li Hongyuan and Jingwan were in a luxurious private room. The two snuggled together to watch the competition when Muan suddenly came in. "Master, His Majesty is here." Li Hongyuan lightly snorted and didn't care. In his view, whether that person came early or late, it was within his expectations. Jingwan got up and sat a little further away. Since a certain emperor wanted to visit incognito and didn't let them know, wanting to give them a surprise, then they would also pretend that they didn't know. When Luchengdi came in, Muan hurriedly greeted, "This servant pays respect to His Majesty. 10,000 blessings to His Majesty." Jingwan also pretended to just know and hurriedly got up, "Greetings to Fu Huang." Then, Li Hongyuan slowly got up, his face cold, "Greetings to Fu Huang." Li Hongyuan's indifference came from the bottom of his heart. Luchengdi only thought that he was still angry and awkward, so he didn't get angry at all and was even in a good mood. "This place is actually not bad." Jingwan glanced at her husband, obediently took over Luchengdi's topic, and explained some things to him with a smile. Luchengdi nodded occasionally and glanced at his evil son from time to time. His son also wanted to save face. As his father, he couldn't expose him, or he would really fly into a rage out of humiliation. He praised Jingwan's gift of 200,000 taels of silver. Well, everyone knew that he was praising his son. Li Hongyuan coldly snorted, "She's the only one who's meddlesome and thinks about nonsense all day long. The treasury will not lack her 200,000 taels of silver." "Your Highness is right." Jingwan responded with a smile. His son said one thing and meant another. He was obviously very concerned, but he pretended not to care. "Yuan, you're wrong. That's your wife's goodwill. 200,000 taels is really a lot." Li Hongyuan sneered again, turned his head and didn't speak. Jingwan helplessly smiled at Luchengdi. Luchengdi nodded to show that he understood. Jingwan laughed in her heart, "Well, it's totally not the same. You nodded. If you really understood it, I don't know if you can keep it." Luchengdi was a certain age, and few emperors were in good health. After sitting for a while, he had to go to the toilet. Muan was in charge of leading the way. After he left, Jingwan asked with a smile, "Your Highness, what kind of image do you have in Fu Huang's heart?" "What image?" "It's probably that I'm bad-tempered and always causing trouble, but in fact, I'm very filial. I put everything on the surface, I'm straightforward, I don't beat around the bush, and I'm also considered smart. That's about it." Jingwan burst into laughter when she heard this. What did he do to leave such an impression on Luchengdi? Thinking about it, he had been an emperor for a lifetime, and he was still a man of his word. He even had the power to control everything, and he didn't lack anything. After returning, he had to imperceptibly establish a completely different image in front of his father. The smile on Jingwan's face disappeared. She couldn't smile anymore. She knew that it was actually a very difficult thing to do. It was also a very sullen thing. Her heart ached. "Was it very difficult when you just came back?" Not really. It's not that I didn't gain anything during that time. After all, if I didn't learn to endure, I probably would have scared you away when I first saw you. How could I allow you to run away? So, the result shouldn't be good. Even if it was hard, isn't it worth it to exchange a few years of hard work for decades of happiness? Li Hongyuan chuckled. Jingwan really didn't know what to say. There was a short silence in the private room. "There's an assassin," a sharp voice immediately set off a boundless storm. Jingwan's expression changed. She immediately stood up and hurried out with Li Hongyuan. As Li Hongyuan's bodyguards, the safety of Li Hongyuan and Jingwan was of course their first priority. They immediately guarded the two with their swords drawn and were ready to fight. Li Hongyuan narrowed his eyes. The commotion came from the direction of his father's bathroom. He didn't believe that this assassination was aimed at his father. Let's go. Li Hongyuan personally protected Jingwan in his arms. Speaking of which, once the private room was closed, it was actually very safe inside. However, Li Hongyuan wouldn't let Jingwan out of his sight when there was danger. He would never make the mistake of his previous life a second time. Soon, they found Luchengdi, and the surroundings were already in chaos. In fact, the situation wasn't that bad. It was because these people were afraid of ghosts and wolves that the situation was very serious. Li Hongyuan looked on coldly. As Luchengdi was traveling incognito, he didn't bring many people with him. Even so, he was well protected. It was unknown how his arm was injured, but Muan was more seriously injured. His face was ghastly pale. There weren't many people, only 3 of them, and they were dressed in the uniform of the horse ranch staff. However, they were quite skilled. Luchengdi's initial injury was probably due to a surprise attack. Li Hongyuan casually drew a sword from the bodyguard. Get out of the way. Before the others could react, Yu Zhongqing, who was at the front, turned around and grabbed Luchengdi, shielding him as he quickly moved to the side. https://11/118007/126290079 Mobile Edition Website. Chapter 493. When Li Hongyuan made his move, Imperial bodyguard Qian and the others naturally protected Jingwan, paying attention to the movements around them at all times, just in case. Li Hongyuan was able to handle the 3 of them with ease. Coupled with the assistance of the people around Luchengdi, Li Hongyuan seized the opportunity to defeat them one by one. He was also merciless, breaking their arms and legs, making them absolutely lose their ability to move. It was obvious that there was no possibility of success. The 3 people subconsciously wanted to bite open the poison sacs hidden in their mouths. Li Hongyuan raised his foot and kicked over. The 3 people were obviously not on the same line, but they were all kicked in the jaw, eliminating the possibility of suicide. After dealing with these 3, Li Hongyuan suddenly tilted his head slightly, sweeping his eyes. The knife in his hand shook and flew out of his hand. With a whoosh, it brushed past Luchengdi's neck. A short and hurried sound. The neck of a woman behind Luchengdi was penetrated. She was still holding a crossbow in her hand. Her eyes were wide open and she died with remaining grievances. Because of this, Luchengdi was so frightened that his hands and feet trembled. If he hadn't just gone to the toilet, he was afraid that he would have lost a lot of face. The bystanders silently moved their eyes away, either looking at the sky or the ground, or paying attention to the people around them. In fact, the target of the person who was killed by Li Hongyuan was actually Jingwan and not Luchengdi. This hidden 4th person might have wanted to take advantage of the chaos to make a move. Unexpectedly, although Li Hongyuan was dealing with the 3 people in front of him, he was also paying attention to the situation around Jingwan. When he found that someone dared to make a move on Jingwan, he brazenly made a move, completely ignoring who was in the path of the knife. The scene of Li Hongyuan killing people, Jingwan had seen it before. At that moment, he was absolutely an emotionless killing machine. Anyone who touched his territory would not have a good ending. Just like just now, Jingwan felt that his eyes were suffused with a cold, metallic light. No one was born like this. At the beginning, Jingwan was somewhat frightened. At that time, she didn't think about this problem. She only heard that Jin Qin Wang was malicious and ruthless. Now that she knew why he was like this, she felt extremely distressed. Clearly, she was protected very well just now. Even if he didn't make a move, she would absolutely be fine. But he made a move, to the extent that it drew out the coldest and darkest thing in his heart. "Ah Yuan, Emperor, are you okay?" Yu Zhongqing supported Lu Chengdi and asked with concern. All of a sudden, Jingwan seemed to have regained her senses. She clenched her fists and calmed herself down. She moved her eyes away from Li Hongyuan and walked quickly to Lu Chengdi. She held his arm and said, "Father, are you okay?" Just now, this daughter-in-law was really scared to death. Fortunately, Wang Ye reacted quickly, otherwise Emperor Mei. Seemingly realizing that she said something wrong, Jingwan slapped her mouth twice. Don't blame Jingwan for letting Lu Chengdi take the blame. She was not only protecting herself, but more importantly, Li Hongyuan ignored Lu Chengdi's safety because of others. That was a big mistake. Then, no matter how much Lu Chengdi loved this son of his, once he knew, there would certainly not be a good outcome. No matter how much he loved his son, could it be compared to his own life? And a lot of things that Li Hongyuan had managed in the past would be burned to the ground. Therefore, she could only let Lu Chengdi think that Li Hongyuan's actions were to save him. Only in this way could she not make a mistake. Is that so? Lu Chengdi's body was still trembling a little, and his speech was not smooth. That's right, these evildoers are really too hateful. Jingwan was still a little scared and looked back, as if she had seen something terrible, and immediately looked away. Lu Chengdi also looked back slowly. When he saw the dead man holding the crossbow, he immediately agreed with Jingwan's words and nodded, Old Six, you have made a contribution to save the emperor this time. Later, I will reward you handsomely." Jingwan slightly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Lu Chengdi agreed, it was fine. Anyway, in the situation just now, except for herself, probably no one knew what was going on. Even if someone disagreed, it could not be helped. After all, one was the princess and the other was the emperor. No one would think that the assassination target was the princess and not the emperor. Lu Chengdi himself thought so he did not doubt Jingwan's words. In this way, the interrogation of the other assassins had nothing to do with them. Quickly call Gong Jiu over and let him take a look at father's wound. Jingwan ordered, "Father, take a rest first, bandage your wound, and then escort you back to the palace. What do you think of handing these assassins to the blackguard for interrogation? Old Six's wife, you can arrange it." But his eyes were looking at Li Hongyuan. Jingwan hurried forward, grabbed Li Hongyuan's arm, and pinched it hard where others could not see. "Your Highness, even if your Highness is angry with father, it has been a long time. Besides, father was considering the overall situation. In father's heart, you must be the most cherished. Your Highness, don't you think?" Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan, and his eyes slowly became lively. Jingwan also heard most of the words. She forced herself to close her eyes, and then looked at Lu Chengdi, and said coldly, "It's good that father is fine." The subtle change in the process could not be discovered by people who were not familiar with Li Hongyuan. "You're done with just one sentence. Why don't you help father to rest and treat his wound?" Jingwan seemed to push him angrily. Li Hongyuan wanted to say that he could go to hell. But he knew that Jingwan was trying her best to cover up and whitewash it all for him. How could he ruin everything based on his mood? So, Lu Chengdi saw his son coming over reluctantly and unconsciously smiled. His courage seemed to have recovered. Before Li Hongyuan reached out to help him, he grabbed Li Hongyuan's arm. Li Hongyuan restrained himself and did not shake him off. He was in a bad mood now. It was as if he had just come back and wanted to destroy everything, but he had to pretend. It was incomparably sullen. "Yu Zhongqing, you go and guard the 3 assassins. Wait for the blackguard to come and take them. During this time, no one is allowed to touch them. I have Old Six here, so there is no need to worry about my safety." "Yes, Your Majesty." Yu Zhongqing responded respectfully. He took the 3 assassins and threw them into the nearest private room, guarding the door like door gods. Jingwan and Li Hongyuan stayed by Lu Qingdi's side and let Gong Jiu apply medicine to him. The others were responsible for comforting the people. However, the emperor was assassinated. No matter who the original target was, since Lu Qingdi encountered the assassin, he was the one who was assassinated. Naturally, the manor had to be temporarily sealed off. However, after such a thing happened, it was obvious that people were also in a state of panic. So many people had to be arranged to ask Lu Qingdi about it. Since the assassins have been caught and killed, they should do what they should do. I'm still here. What's there to be afraid of? Lu Qingdi was tough at this moment, as if he had completely forgotten who was the one who was scared to death before. Your Highness, is the feng shui of our horse farm not good? This time, there are always problems. Jingwan muttered to Li Hongyuan as if complaining. The bad thing is the human heart. It has nothing to do with feng shui. Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwan lightly. Jingwan pursed her lips and stopped talking. It was just that the speaker didn't mean it, but the listener took it seriously. The thing that happened to the Bai family last time also happened here. In Lu Qingdi's heart, he also knew that in fact, someone framed him. He couldn't find out the truth, so he suppressed it and didn't continue to investigate. Then this time, who would dare to directly make a move against him? Could it be that the assassination attempt was also fake, but another trap? Of course, it would be even better if he could really die. Lu Qingdi clenched his back teeth. This time, he must find out the truth and not let it go. Therefore, this was the fundamental difference between a threat to his life and not. Previously, even if he knew that Li Hongyuan was framed, he still thought that it was fine if he couldn't find out the truth. But now, he must find out the truth. If he really found out the truth, he probably wouldn't be lenient. Lu Qingdi's injury was not serious. There was only a long but not deep wound. Because of the poison, he would be in danger after a certain period of time. Fortunately, it was not difficult for Gong Jiu. After detoxifying the poison, he would be fine after taking a few more doses of medicine. It was not a big problem. Li Hongyuan proposed to send Lu Qingdi back, but Lu Qingdi was calm. Since I'm here to watch the horse race, how can I leave without watching a single race? He waved his hand and sat there to watch the horse race. He wanted to personally experience the warm atmosphere of being sought after. It's improper to shout and shout. Lu Qingdi said, but his eyes gradually became excited. Jingwan and Li Hongyuan sat behind. They looked at each other and didn't say anything. This was nothing. The influence of the assassination had weakened a lot. Li Hongyuan seemed to be bored and played with Jingwan's fingers. He didn't care whether Lu Qingdi would suddenly turn around and see it or not. Jingwan struggled a few times but couldn't break free. She could only let him be. The blackguard came quickly. Lu Qingdi didn't give the order to keep it a secret. So, soon, everyone who should know knew. Lu Qingdi trusted the blackguard the most. Since they said they would escort him back, Lu Qingdi naturally wouldn't say anything. Li Hongyuan wanted to go back with him, but Lu Qingdi refused. If the assassination hadn't happened, he would be happy to cultivate his son's feelings. Now, he didn't have time. It was more important to deal with the matter first. You can go to the palace to see me in a few days. You haven't been there for a long time. Li Hongyuan responded indifferently. As soon as they left, Li Hongyuan no longer concealed his emotions. His entire being seemed to be shrouded in a vicious aura, looking quite terrifying. It was no wonder that he was so angry. Someone dared to attack Jingwan under his nose. It was already his limit to not chop that person into minced meat. It was enough to show that he still had some control over killing people in front of others. Otherwise, with his current appearance, no matter how blind Lu Qingdi was, he would still have some doubts. Jingwan had no choice but to be patient and appease him. Others couldn't get close to him at all. When Li Hongyuan calmed down, the day's competition was all over. Jingwan knew that Li Hongyuan was not normal, but this was mostly caused by psychological factors. She asked Gongjiu if it was possible to use drugs to control it. According to Gongjiu, other people might be able to, but on Li Hongyuan, it wouldn't have any effect. Moreover, this kind of emotion couldn't be completely let out. It couldn't be completely suppressed by perseverance. It was appropriate to vent, and at the same time to vent, one must know how to control it. As for the degree of recovery, they didn't even know the source. Naturally, there was no way to talk about it. Jingwan knew. Obviously, it could only be done slowly. When her death was over, when everything was settled, when he slowly let go of the knot in his heart, it would probably be fine. Wang Fei, why don't we sort out the people in the manor? Sorting them out naturally needs to be done, but it can only be done for show. We can't clean them all up. Jin Qinhuang's residence and manor were like iron buckets. It would be strange if it didn't arouse suspicion. Therefore, the horse farm was like a sieve. It was completely the result of them letting it go. But there were too many loopholes and there would always be mistakes from time to time. It was really annoying. In this kind of situation, the shadow guards and imperial bodyguards of Jin Qinhuang's residence were quite dissatisfied. However, if everything was cleaned up, it would obviously be more troublesome. Moreover, it would be a big trouble. In contrast, it might be better to maintain the status quo. Although they weren't afraid of something, if nothing happened, it would naturally be more relaxed. As the saying goes, don't be afraid of trouble, dislike trouble. But at this time, they didn't need to sort it out. Lu Chengdi was assassinated in the manor, and it was someone in the horse farm. Of course, everyone in the manor was within the scope of investigation. Because of Li Hongyuan's indulgence, the blackguard would definitely be able to find a lot of good information this time. In this way, the master behind these people wouldn't be able to blame Li Hongyuan. But, who was the assassination target this time? Was it really Jingwan? The person bumped into Lu Chengdi and was taken away by the blackguard. There was no way to interrogate, so naturally, they couldn't be sure for the time being. However, it was only temporary. The things that Li Hongyuan wanted to know, unless everyone was dead and there were no clues again, he would definitely find them out. After a preliminary investigation, the blackguard had already found a lot of problematic people and then directly reported to Lu Chengdi. After Lu Chengdi saw it, he felt sorry for his son. With a wave of his hand, he sent people over. These problematic people were all returned to their original masters as a warning. At the same time, Lu Chengdi also sent people to pass a message to Li Hongyuan. Those who were not pleasing to the eye, they should all be pulled out. Ben Wang has nothing to hide. As long as they work for Ben Wang obediently, Ben Wang doesn't care about their origin. These words were brought back to Lu Chengdi as they were. Lu Chengdi felt sorry and sad again. In his opinion, Li Hongyuan was really a good son. There were many things that could prove this point. For example, the antidote that Gongjiu gave him. After he returned to the palace, he asked the imperial doctor about it. In fact, it was just a sedative. Obviously, it was because he was frightened. His son was so considerate that he didn't publicize it at all, saving his face. The misunderstanding was getting deeper and deeper. If Lu Chengdi fully knew the truth in the future, what kind of expression would he have? She was really looking forward to it. Where does the emperor get the confidence that there are no spies among the people he sent? Or, are his own spies not spies? Jingwan felt that Lu Chengdi sometimes seemed to be a little self-confident. He thought that he had full control over his court, harem, and the entire country. Sometimes, he clearly felt something, but when he looked back, he seemed to forget it. It was as if everything had returned to his hands. Was he deceiving himself, or was it that even so, it didn't matter as long as he still had absolute control over all his son's glory and wealth? Not to mention other things, there was a problem with the eunuchs around him. It would have been better if they didn't investigate. After this investigation, more than one person revealed that he left the palace in disguise. Not to mention how many third parties knew about it in a short period of time. Except for the chief steward who had always been by his side, the others were all sent to the Department of Cautious Punishment and died without surviving the torture. It was already like this. Did he still think that the people he sent to his sons were good? The blackguard's interrogation originally thought that the results would be out quickly. However, they underestimated the tough bones of these few assassins. The blackguard's torture instruments that made people tremble with fear were used on them, but they still couldn't make them speak. Moreover, they died in there after only 2 days. It wasn't that they couldn't survive the torture, but they were poisoned to death. Obviously, there was a loophole in the blackguard. It could be imagined how furious Luchengdi was. He had always regarded the blackguard as the sharpest sword in his hand, and he had absolute control over it, ordering it as he wished. However, reality slapped him hard in the face. Investigate, investigate, investigate thoroughly. Other than this, Luchengdi probably couldn't say anything else. In this way, the originally majestic blackguard was also covered in dirt. The only one who wasn't affected was probably Li Suyen. The commander of the blackguard originally knew that Li Suyen would take over his position. He had always handed over everything to Li Suyen. He was also happy and relaxed. Although there wouldn't be any merit, he wouldn't offend more people. Who knew that this time, Luchengdi specifically handed over the matter to him? Well, when something happened, he was directly scolded by Luchengdi like a dog. Li Suyen had dealt with many big and small matters. She had always been fine. In the end, when it came to him, something went wrong. How tragic. The problem now was that the few people guarding the assassins were also dead. The clues were naturally cut off. There were so many people in the blackguard. It was impossible to interrogate them one by one. If that was the case, not only would the blackguard's prestige be ruined, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Luchengdi only wanted results. Would he listen to such an explanation? If that was the case, the commander of the blackguard would probably lose his integrity in his later years. He would have to go to the blackguard's prison himself. The commander of the blackguard wiped his face and looked at Li Suyen with a slightly cold gaze. It was absolutely impossible to say that he didn't have any opinions about this subordinate. No one was still fine. The position under their buttocks had already been reserved by someone else. In order to smoothly get the position, they had to make way and pave the way for him. No matter how much joy and hardship, it couldn't erase the resentment and unwillingness in their hearts. Li Suyen stood upright with a knife at his waist. He lowered his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes. At any time, he was very respectful to this superior and never overstepped his boundaries. However, this attitude made the commander of the blackguard even angrier because he couldn't vent his anger. If he gave the other party any face, it would be his fault. It was fine if the blackguard looked at him with a "you're being unreasonable" gaze. If he wasn't careful, he would be called by the emperor. "Do you have any opinions about this?" was enough to make him want to vomit blood. Most of the time, the commander of the blackguard thought that Li Suyen did it on purpose to put him in such an embarrassing situation. Whether it was intentional or not, only Li Suyen himself knew. "Ah Yuan, who do you think poisoned those assassins to death?" Jingwan fiddled with a gorgeous flower casually. "Who? Of course it's me." Li Hongyuan answered matter-of-factly. Jingwan turned to look at him subconsciously. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. "You're not joking?" Li Hongyuan glanced at her indifferently. "Why would I joke about such a boring matter with you?" "But, why?" Jingwan didn't understand. Wan, who do you think those assassins came for? It can't really be me, right? Jingwan frowned. When did she have such value that even assassins were sent out? The main goal is to kill you. It's best if they succeed. If they don't succeed, kill as many as they can and create chaos. Anyway, they're just causing trouble for us. In the end, someone was unlucky and ran into them. The assassins have no value, so there's no need to keep them. Let him believe that the assassins came for him. What's wrong with that? Jingwan looked at the sky, the earth, the flowers, and everything. In the end, her gaze fell on a certain person. Alright, if you think it's good, then it's good. Anyway, everyone can take the blame for you. Everyone can be schemed against by you. I was schemed against by you more than 10 years ago. I was cheated by you. Now, it's just a continuation. It's not easy to kill people in the blackguard's prison. Who's working for you? Li Suyen killed them. However, it's not considered working for me. At most, it's just a deal. This answer seemed to be unexpected. Thinking about it carefully, it didn't seem to be surprising. There seemed to be some signs last year in Jiangnan. As far as I know, Li Suyen is his adopted son in name. However, after returning from Jiangnan, I found out something else. He's actually our biological brother. Usually, if a man and a woman who aren't husband and wife sleep together, it's considered adultery. It's intolerable. However, if an emperor sleeps with someone else's woman, the man can't be angry. He can't take revenge. He has to take good care of the woman. If she's pregnant, he has to treat the bastard child like an ancestor. If an ordinary adulterous child is exposed, it's an adulterous child. If the adulterous child left behind by the emperor and another person is exposed, it's a rise in status and he becomes a prince. This is the dignity of the emperor. He has all the advantages. Li Hongyuan's tone was still indifferent, as if he was just stating a fact. Therefore, a man who was cuckolded by the emperor was probably the most miserable person in the world. Of course, other than the kind of man who used this kind of thing to get promoted. For someone like Lu Chengdi, a woman's resistance might be seen as a rejection. Then, what kind of situation does Li Suyen belong to? Since she had already slept with the emperor, she naturally couldn't get married again. That family had a beautiful dream of becoming a relative of the emperor, so they forcefully broke off the engagement with the man. The man didn't have any power, so naturally, the matter was left unsettled. However, that man's thoughts were all on the imperial noble consort, who hadn't entered the palace yet. How could he care about other people? Moreover, he was unilaterally pledging his love to the imperial noble consort. That kind of thing would hinder his relationship with the imperial noble consort, so it was impossible for him to admit it. That family was transferred out of the capital. After a few years, Li Suyen came back alone. His mother left the family after leaving the capital. She raised him until he was a few years old before sending him back. After that, she disappeared. Li Suyen stayed in the family for a few years. One night, the family was robbed. Other than Li Suyen, who escaped, everyone else died. Because he knew his background, he returned to the capital alone. After all, he was still a child. How could he survive outside? As a local official, he lived in the county. The city gates were closed at night. Why did the robbers pick on this family? It was terrifying to think about. Jingwan was shocked. Li Suyen, Li Hongyuan smiled indifferently. Who knows? In my previous life, when I forced the emperor to abdicate, Li Suyen was there. He chose to stand aside and watch. Or rather, he opened the door for me. Regarding this, I had my doubts before. However, I wasn't interested in finding out the answer. Now, I pretty much know. The only soft spot in his heart should be his mother. Is this related to your deal? She's already dead. It's just that she died earlier than he expected. It's only been a few years. We've already found the location of her grave. His only concern is gone. This person, cold and heartless. He took care of the assassins and the prison guards. Those people, to a certain extent, were his brothers who went through fire and water with him. If he didn't kill them, they probably wouldn't give him up. On the contrary, if he wanted to, he could even help them clear their names. But he used the most cold-blooded and violent method. It was said that even the coldest person had a soft spot in his heart. Only then could he be called a person. Li Suyen could no longer be called a person. Moreover, he abandoned everything. Ah Yuan, it's best that you don't use such a person. After all, he doesn't want to die yet. Li Suyen is cold and heartless. He doesn't have any desires. He won't meddle in things that have nothing to do with him. He's not cynical and wants to kill at the drop of a hat. He only lives for the sake of living. I'm afraid he doesn't have much hatred for the one on the throne. The things he did in his previous life were probably just because he didn't have any feelings for that man. Jingwan was speechless. She really didn't know how to evaluate such a person. In my previous life, after I became the emperor, I made him the commander of the blackguard. To be honest, he was very useful. So, you actually still want to do this? Probably. In his previous life, he was used to help you wipe out the family. What was he going to do in this life? I think that Wan might face some obstacles in the future. Li Suyen should be able to come in handy when the time comes. Now, he's just in case. Jingwan pulled her face. Then I really have to thank you. He thought so far ahead. She didn't want to make any big changes. Was there a need to use violence to suppress the situation? You're welcome. It's my duty to support my wife in her work. Li Hongyuan nodded seriously. Jingwan was speechless. It was useless to talk about this. Who's the one who's going through so much trouble to kill me? What does Wan think? Jingwan thought for a moment. Even if it's someone who has a grudge against me, it doesn't seem like they want me dead. Who told you that you have to have a reason to kill someone before you can kill someone? Wan, it's not right for you to always think this way. We were just talking about Li Suyen. To some people, as long as there's a little obstacle, even if it's a small stone, it can be a reason to kill. So, the so-called law was targeted at a certain group of people. She still couldn't accept it, but her heart was still calm. I'm your princess consort after all. The first person who has a grudge against me, dares to do it, and has the ability to do it, is your adoptive mother, Imperial Consort Su. Li Hongyuan got up and walked to Jingwan's side. He patted her head. See, you're so smart. Why do you have to be so silly sometimes? Jingwan slapped him and sneered. Then it's really hard on you to marry a princess consort who's always being silly. It's not hard on you. You're my wife. It's okay even if you're a little silly. I can handle it. So, it's really fine. Jingwan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. This man was always infuriating. The number of times she had suffered in his hands was more than the sum of the times in her previous life. But, if he made you angry, this man was used to coaxing people, so you couldn't be angry. If you hardened your heart and wanted to give him the cold shoulder, he could make other troubles. So, quarreling was quarreling. After quarreling, it was fine. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be like this for the rest of their lives. Although it would always be a meal, it didn't seem to be a bad thing. Who asked this man to be paranoid and overbearing like a child? If she didn't spoil and give in to him, what else could she do? Jingwan's anger came and went quickly. Then, can I say that the incident with the Bai family last time was actually her doing? Indeed, that woman knows my situation the best, but she's also the one who's most afraid of me. Then what should we do now? How are you going to deal with it? When Li Hongming's child is born, we'll kill them all. At that time, the war should be relatively stable. Now, we'll completely destroy the Su family. Li Hongyuan looked at Jingwan. Sorry, Wan, I can't immediately kill that woman to avenge you. Although there's a way to make that woman fall, it's far from enough. If you want pain, you have to make her go crazy. You have to make her live a life worse than death. Li Hongyuan's voice was full of ruthlessness. It's fine. Let's take it slow. I believe that you won't let me suffer the slightest bit of harm. Moreover, your imperial father is not a trustworthy person. To deal with some people, we can't pin our hopes on him. We still need to do it ourselves and ruthlessly trample on them, making them unable to climb back up. That's right. This was the real reason why Li Hongyuan didn't rush to deal with Imperial Consort Su even though she had lost her value. Lu Chengdi wasn't trustworthy. When he was still in power, he had to be prepared to be cheated by him at any time. Even if he trampled on someone, he had to be prepared for it to become useless soon. However, it didn't matter to deal with the Su family. The next day, a low-level official in the capital went directly to the Supreme Court to sue the Assistant Minister of the Ministry of Revenue, Su Mingzhang, for murdering his son and inhumane. Although the Minister of the Supreme Court wasn't as high as the Minister of the Ministry of Justice, cases that weren't ordered by the Emperor were basically major cases. Once it reached the Supreme Court, it wasn't a small matter. Moreover, the current Minister of the Supreme Court was an upright and impartial person when it came to cases. Ordinary people, even high-ranking officials, wouldn't want to cause trouble in the Supreme Court. If it was someone else, it might be delayed. However, in the hands of the fifth Tai Ching, it was immediately accepted. At this time, it didn't matter if Su Mingzhang's position was higher than his. If he was summoned for questioning, he had to obediently take off his official robes and go. At most, he didn't have to kneel. If he didn't go, then sorry, but the fifth Tai Ching could directly send people to arrest him. At that time, it would be even more embarrassing. Under everyone's strange gazes, Su Mingzhang's expression was still calm and he appeared to be neither fast nor slow. However, he was the one who did it after all. After so long, it was suddenly exposed. He also didn't dare to be sure that he had cleaned up all the loose ends. Therefore, he still felt guilty in his heart. Whether it was noble consort Su or Prince Rui, they were both shocked and angry when they found out about this. In particular, noble consort Su almost couldn't catch her breath. She had racked her brains over and over again and used up a lot of her trump cards, but she failed again and again. Now that Su Mingzhang was in trouble, it basically meant that the Su family no longer had any manpower that could be used. She felt as if her heart had been stabbed by a knife over and over again, bleeding profusely. She only hated that her adopted son's luck was so good that he could easily escape again and again. Thinking about it, the Bai family's only son was stolen by the mistress of the family. Others didn't know, but he just happened to find out. This time, even if he couldn't kill that little bitch Madame Luo, it would still be a big problem. However, the emperor was out on an inspection tour and all the assassins were killed. She was believed to have assassinated the emperor and lost many of her men. It could only be described as lucky. In fact, if it were anyone else, they would think that Li Hongyuan was lucky and not prepared for a rainy day. After all, rebirth was something that few people would think of if they didn't personally encounter it. Even so, noble consort Su still had a strong sense of uneasiness. It was as if she was being held in the hand of an invisible hand that blocked and hindered her every move. Noble consort Su's health was actually getting worse. In the past 6 months, more than half of her hair had turned white and was falling out very badly. Many of her hair buns couldn't be combed anymore. The reason why it couldn't be seen was because she dyed it every day and used a lot of filler every time. "Someone, go get Prince Rui." Noble consort Su held the teacup and wanted to take a sip, but her hands trembled so much that the lid of the teacup clanked against the cup. She hurriedly put down the cup and clenched her hands tightly, hiding them in her sleeves. She didn't want anyone to see. She didn't want to admit that she had aged so much. However, she could hide her situation from others, but how could she hide it from the people around her? The palace servants who served her were very distressed. But now that the Jade Essence Palace no longer favored her and noble consort Su's temper was getting worse and worse, they didn't dare to say anything. After all, the words of a lowly person didn't carry much weight. One wrong move and they might even lose their lives. Prince Rui came very openly. After all, he was also at a loss and couldn't sit still in the current situation. "Yes, enough. Look at the situation now. The Supreme Court is only summoning his name and won't detain him. When he goes back, tell him that if he can't do it, he can admit to the crime. However, he can't prove that he took the initiative to kill someone and that it was someone else who set him up. But mother, even so, I'm afraid that he still can't keep his official position. The related people have already been dealt with. It shouldn't be, there's no such thing as shouldn't be. At the beginning, we suspected that everything wasn't just the result of that woman's revenge. Now that the matter has been uncovered, it's obvious that this point has been confirmed. Since someone deliberately set him up, there must be evidence. It's impossible for it to be dealt with by you. In addition, the matter of you helping to clean up the mess can't be exposed. When the time comes, we'll do our best to reduce his crime. Mother, in this case, won't the outer family, when you sit in that position, it's just a matter of saying a word to reverse the case. If you get involved, then it's really hopeless. The Emperor won't do anything to you, but he will be strict with your name. Tell them clearly that at this time, they should be sober and don't be muddle-headed." Even if she was really old, noble consort Su was still very clear-headed. https://11/11807/126298080 HTML. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.